Everyone, and welcome to our match preview show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Over the years, this fixture is regarded as a title decider between Man City and Liverpool, but very surprisingly, this year it's not quite the case, as Man City have suffered numerous defeats and just haven't looked like their old selves. So it's only right that I invite a guest who can give his take on Man City's slight downfall. I wouldn't say complete downfall, but just slightly this season. And I'm joined by a special guest, Sam from Undiluted Media. I'm sure you guys have met Sam before. So, firstly, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show. How have you been?
No worries, bro. Appreciate you having me on. I've been good, man. Been good, man. It's been a minute since been on the show, so today will be good to kind of just chop it up, talk about City, talk about Liverpool, talk about the current situation. So it'll be good, man. It'll be very interesting.
No, I appreciate you coming on, man. I know your football knowledge is right there. So we'll be talking our teams, but we will be talking about other things as well. So let's address the elephant in the room. So give me your take as to why Man City have sort of digressed this season. Is it simply due to Rodri's injury, or is there something a bit more to it?
Do you know what? In terms of this, I think a lot of rival fans will like to use this analogy and say, do you know what? Pep ain't a great manager, or he isn't a good manager, or we're a one-man team and we rely on Rodri. And I don't think it's the sense that we rely on Rodri. He's very important and pivotal to our team. And Pep being a former defensive midfielder and knowing how to play that position, the way we play our system is very pivotal on having a very competent DM. So I think Rodri's miss, we probably would say, is about 50% of it. Is very important because we didn't have a natural standing replacement for him. If we had Nico at the beginning of the season, I think it would have been different. But also, look, Man City have been going strong in terms of this Pep era for the last 8 years. And it's been getting to semi-finals, finals, winning Prems, going toe-to-toe with Liverpool. And, then the players are playing international games. So a lot of the players have had a lot of mental fatigue and physical fatigue. And as you know, most of our key players that helped us win the treble and helped us win this 4 in a row and win 6 Premier Leagues in 8 years have got to the tail end of their career. And, essentially their body's just broken down. And we expect that to happen. And I think where City went wrong is after that treble winning season, we didn't rebuild the team with quality players. So, for example, we let Gundo go and other players go. And then we brought in the likes of Calvin Phillips. We brought in the likes of Mateus Nunes. And they're decent players for, the mid-table sixes and below. But to come into City, I don't think they elevated our team. So I think it's poor recruitment, obviously Father Time getting there, and Rodri's injury. And all three of those issues has kind of culminated into this issue where we're kind of struggling. And also, again, what people don't realize, Pep's never been at a team for longer than four years. He's been at City for what? Going to be 10 years in 2016. So just again, in terms of, we've seen it with Klopp and Pep, the style of football they play is very grueling. And again, mental fatigue, physical fatigue. And for you to do that for a number of time, you need to always have a refresh, and which we haven't. So the players have just essentially broke down. And again, not kind of trying to discredit anyone, but you can just see the quality of the Premier League this year isn't great anyway. So for anyone to, win the league or finish first or second, it's not going to be that difficult because Chelsea's not great, Liverpool ain't great, City ain't great. So it's just been a multitude of different things, and there's no excuses in it. We've just had a poor season, and we're just trying to grind it out. Hopefully we finish in the top 4, just get the qualification for the Champions League. If we can win the FA Cup, we'll be able to salvage a season. But if we don't, we go again. And I think we just need to kind of, recruit better in the summer. And from being a City fan, you can see we kind of started that recruitment process early because, with the big teams, a lot of the players need at least 6 months to kind of bed in. So we've made those 4 signings early so they can bed in till from January till the summer. And then the new signings come in and it's not a lot of, transition in terms of bedding in more players. And there's been rumors about City trying to look to bring in between 5 to 8 players. 5 players, sorry, and then 8 players probably leaving. So it kind of makes sense. But all in all, I'll say they're the 3 things that kind of, have messed us up. Rodri's injury, not good reinforcements, and then just father time playing on the veteran players and getting older, really, bro.
No, I think it's a fair assessment. I think when fans or rival fans will say that, oh, Man City have, you know, destroyed themselves this season because they didn't, replace Rodri. But Rodri is a very difficult player to replace. You
Mm,
can't really find a like for like replacement or someone that has all of his characteristics, if that makes sense. So I mean to suggest Man City were a one-man team, for me, is not quite correct or accurate in
mm,
that way. But obviously, Ballon d'Or winner, so obviously he's elite in some form, isn't he? So it was
that's
always going to be a difficult task for Man City to replace a player of his quality. I do agree in terms of your assessment of the squad over the years. It's obviously Liverpool haven't won as many trophies as Man City, but for example, the seasons where we've had when we were trying to get the quad because we were,
mm,
competing 2 or 3 seasons where we were on the verge of getting. Obviously, we didn't get it and nowhere near it, but it has a huge toll on the squad because you're still playing all of those magnitude of games. So you end
facts.
up playing like 60 odd games a season, and it does have a toll on his body. And
Mm,
your style is more high possession football, whereas Liverpool under Klopp was just high energy, heavy metal
yeah,
football, as he likes to describe it. So different forms of football, but requires probably the same amount of energy, if that
energy,
makes
facts.
sense. So it's one of those things where I think the average fan might not understand it because it's like,
Mm,
oh, they're human, they should be accustomed to the way of playing in terms of, you're used to playing 50 odd games a season. But the thing is, Man City and Liverpool, I have always been playing games until the end of the season. They've
season, yeah.
always been around semi-finals, finals, and we're probably playing 60 games a season, which is not the normal average for other teams across
Teams,
Europe.
yeah. And also, look, you can attest to this even more as well because
Mm.
Liverpool went through this situation recently, and I think where it kind of hurts the big teams is when you have an aging midfield. Liverpool had that situation where they had Wijnaldum, Fabinho, and Henderson, and
Yeah,
there's a there's a gap. Like people forget how important the midfield is because it bridges the gap between defense and midfield and up front. And
yeah,
if you've got lackluster midfield, basically
yeah,
you're playing with nobody in the middle of the park. So you just bypass that and it's straight to the
yeah.
defense. And that's what we had when we're going into games and we're playing Bernardo, Gundo, and De Bruyne. They all got no legs.
No,
Like
that's
it's
very
it's
true.
crazy. And then you're playing the likes of Newcastle that's got Joe Linton, Bruno G, and Talani, like fit young guys. Then you're playing
Yeah,
Liverpool that's got McAllister, um,
Gravenberch.
Gravenback, and
Yeah,
then you got Soboslai, like young athletic guys. Then you got Chelsea with the likes of Caicedo, Lavia, Palmer, Enzo, and then we're going in with guys that are like Bernardo's 30, but the way he's played, and he's one of the pet players that one thing I always say is that Pep's been too loyal to players that have done well for him, innit? And Bernardo's been one of those. He's a guy that's rarely injured, and when it comes to Pep needs one of those senior players to play and do a job for him, he will play Bernardo out of position. And but like I said, Bernardo's 30, but because he's done so much running and leg work and played all these
yeah,
games for Portugal and Man City, he's playing like he's a 35-year-old. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? And I
Mm.
think that's where our issue was, where we didn't have the numbers in midfield and we didn't have the quality, and then the age factor. And I think that just messed up our whole season because that gap between striker and defense was no one in the middle. So when we're playing teams, they're bypassing the midfield, and then as you know, and as you said, we play a very high intense game, so we play with a high line. So once you bypass the midfield and you can get past the defender, you're through on goal. And we just saw it's been a bad season, isn't it? But like I said, we move and we try and figure it out. But I think that's the main thing. The old midfield has kind of made us depleted, and everyone's seeing it. And even Pep says every time he plays these teams, they all got a lot of high intensity, and we can't compete with them currently in midfield because of the age, physicality. Do you know what I mean? Nico looks like he's going to help us with that. He had a great debut against Newcastle. Real Madrid, it showed there. Like there was a big gap between us pressing and the midfield, and then straight to the defense. So I think once Rodri comes back, we'll have Nico. I think we should buy at least two midfielders in the summer. One like a box to box, and then one like a attacking eight to replace De Bruyne. But we'll probably get into that. But yeah, it's been a bit of a weird season, and I think that's just the main thing, man.
What have you made of the new signings that have come in January? So you signed the likes of
Marmoush,
Christianov,
yeah,
yeah, Marmoush, who, by the way, I've been very impressed with him.
yeah,
Very impressed. We were linked with him
mm,
last few months, obviously being Egyptian, so that might have been the automatic
yeah,
links there. But I mean, stylistically, he will suit us very well. But I
yeah,
think you got ahead of the curve there instead of signing him. You signed Victor Reis, the centre back,
yeah. He's a young
and
centre back
then
from Brazil.
from Brazil, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nico Gonzalez also. What have you made of these additions to your squad?
So let me start with the main one is Marmoush. I think Marmoush is a
Yeah.
good player. I think when he came in and when I'd watched him for Frankfurt, I thought he could play on the left, like a roaming 10
Yeah.
behind a striker and up front. And what I've seen is that if you want to get the best out of Marmoush, you have to play him on the left with an actual striker that he can bounce off and he can make them underlaps, them overlaps, and stretch the defense. So I think in that aspect, he's gonna work. When I've seen him play as like a 10 to be a creative, I don't think that's his bag. And then when I've
Yeah.
seen him up front, that's not really his bag unless he's got someone to bounce off. Whether
Yeah.
that's if that was an old school De Bruyne, it might work, but I don't think with De Bruyne now or Phil Foden playing in that 10, it's gonna work. So I think what we're good the way we're gonna see the best out of him is on the left. And we saw that when he played Newcastle and he bagged the hat trick. So that was great. And then we saw snippets of it when he played against Chelsea on the left with Haaland as well. He had opportunities. It was offside a bit, but he was eager. So I think he's going to be good. Kuzanov, I think he's a work in progress and there's a lot of potential. I think he's got the great aggression for a defender in the Premier League, which you need. He's got the pace as well. I think he's probably got the temperament, coming from Eastern Europe, they got that kind of calm temperament. But I do think he has to improve on his decision making. He's a bit, I don't want to be rude, but he's got a bit of a bozo gene in it, where certain things just don't. You think, why are you doing that as a defender, or
Yeah.
why did you make that tackle, or why did you do that? As we saw on his debut, yes, it was his debut, a bit of pressure, but again, that's the type of gene. And I think he's 20, so he's got enough time to improve. And I think he'll be good. But again, he's a work in process. And I think the more games he gets, the more coaching he gets from the City coaching staff, the more times around the team, he's going to get comfortable and play well. Because against Newcastle, he played well. Against Real Madrid, the first 10 minutes, Vinny tried to rip him. But then when he got into the game, he could handle Vinny's pace. He kind of handled himself. So I think he's going to be good. I do think out of the two centre backs, me personally, I do think Vita Hayes will be better. From
Okay.
what I've seen, he seems very calm, very composed. He's more of a leader, but because he's come from Brazil, I think they're gonna bed him in slowly. But again, from what I heard, people said he's got that pedigree of Thiago Silva,
Wow.
leadership on the ball, off the ball, very calm and composed. So again, another work in process, but I do think like we know most Brazilians, they've got that technicality about them in it. So I'll put him there. Nico, I think he's going to be really good. Obviously, I'm an old school guy in it, so I play Football Manager a lot of times in my life in it. So
Yeah.
I've known Nico from Football Manager at Barca, and he was one of their wonder kids in it. And he only left Barca because he had financial issues, and he went into play. So he went to Valencia on loan, then he went to Porto, and yeah, seeing him on the debut against Newcastle, you could tell that was a missing cog. Like If you pair him with two competent midfielders that allow him to do his job, he's got that Pep, Busquets, Rodri S where they can get the ball, with their back to the opponent's goal and kind of, they're the cog that's connecting everything. So I think he's going to do good. And in the summer, in the new season, when Rodri's back, I think him and Nico will give us that base when we're playing against the bigger teams, where we've got two solid 6 foot plus guys that are competent, calm, and composed on the ball, and help us build up from the back. So I think the four signings have been good. We've gone for a younger demographic, which is good. The oldest is
Yeah.
Mum, who's just turned 26. So we're going through that refresh. I do think we probably need about 4 or 5 more signings in the summer to kind of help that rebuild, because I believe we need a right back. I do like Rico Lewis, but he can't be your number one right back. He's a guy that you have a rotation, bring him on for the
Yeah.
last 25 minutes, control the game. Carl Walker's gone. We need to replace Bernardo, need to replace Gundo, need to replace De Bruyne. So that's one. Then I think we again, we might need like a backup striker for Haaland. So yeah, there's a lot of signings to do. But I think the 4 signings, I think they'll be good. But with me, you got to give them time in it. Coming from a different league to the Premier League, you'll definitely have to give them time. So I would say if I had to rank them out of 10 for that transfer window, I'd say I'd give Man City a 7.5 or 8.
That's interesting. In terms of the profiles you mentioned, I think Marmoush is definitely playing when I saw him play. For
Mm,
me, I just feel like he was a left winger, like just the way he would attack. He used
yeah.
to occupy that left channel a lot. I know for Frankfurt, they do normally play with 2 strikers. So they've got Etikite and they've
Mm,
got Marmoush. So they used to play as a duo. So
yeah.
that's not very common in the Premier League for us to see like 2 strikers together. But
Mm,
obviously, it could work if Pep wanted to switch it up and you have 2 strikers up top.
yeah.
The formation around it can be, a back three with a 5 in midfield and 2 strikers, whatever the case.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting player because he can play multiple positions. Left wing for me, I do agree with you. I think that
Mm,
is the strongest positions where he can drive, he can be direct with the ball, but he can also cut inside and have a shot on goal. I feel like that's his strength. So for me, I feel like he's a good signing. The number 10 role, I agree. He doesn't really have that sort of creative nous to do those, like fed those through balls, anything to
yeah.
that nature. So he's more of an attacker, he's more direct. So I think as a striker and a left winger, it suits. And even if you need him on the right, you've got
Right. Yeah.
flexibility there to play him there. So I think it's an interesting sign. 60 million, I'll be honest with you, that doesn't even sound like a lot in this day and
That's
age.
cheap, man. In this day and age,
Yeah,
you man paid what 80, 90 million for Nunes. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
do you know what
There's
I
a said
mean?
about
So
that guy, man. Yeah, yeah. Our fan base, we'll touch on him later on as well. Our fan
yeah.
base are very loyal to that guy, but God knows why. But in terms of Marmoush, yeah, I agree with you. And Cristiano is 20-year-old centre back. When it comes to centre backs, they always take time to sort of learn
Time,
their
yeah.
trade. And he's come to a new league where it's more aggressive. The strike is a bit more sort of like in your face. It's not quite like
Mm,
the other leagues where you've got a bit more freedom on the ball and you can kind of dictate from the back as well. So he's going to take a bit of time to get used to. The other one I'm very interested because I don't know too much about him, Victor Reis,
mm,
that you mentioned. So that's one that I'm looking forward to seeing. And then Nico Gonzalez, of course, you mentioned made a debut, scored a tap in against Real Madrid the other day as well. So he's a interesting profile as well. So you mentioned a few players that are sort of on the verge of not. I won't decline seems very harsh to say, but in terms of their age, that it's
mm,
it's sort of like the next chapter at Man City. So if you could pick a scenario where you are the sporting director and you
mhm.
can select the players that you would like to see come through in the summer, who would they be to replace those players that you mentioned?
You see me. I think with the midfield, I think you have to have different varieties, and
Yeah.
everyone's competing. We've got Phil Foden that can play centrally. We've got at the moment Nico. Rodri's going to come back, but again, you can easily get injuries, and you want to be able to rest players. So me personally, if I was a sporting director, I'll definitely try and get Florian Wirtz. He's to replace De Bruyne. Like we need a creator, and a lot of City fans, they're very on this. Oh, but if we buy all these players, certain players have to sit down. And I think if you're a big team, you can't have that mentality. If if Foden is that guy, if Foden's that guy, he will compete and make Vert sit on the bench, or they'll find a way for them both to play as creative eights. And we've seen City do it before when we've had David Silva and De Bruyne. So it can work, but everyone needs to fight for their place, because I think when you're playing, in these competitions and you're trying to go, like you said, City have done it, Liverpool done it, you're trying to go for quadruples and win 4 trophies, you need a stacked team, and you need to have the best in class in every position. So in terms of midfield, to boost up that midfield, as a creative eight are, Florian Wirtz. As a midfielder, box to box, destroyer. But I do think he needs to improve in the final third in terms of making that pass, but he's still young. And I know you probably want him at Liverpool. A lot of players want him at their team. It's Carlos Baleba. That's who I would get in my team. Do you know what I mean? Where if we got to pay 95 million, 100 million, just pay it, because at the end of the day, you will make back the money when you're winning the trophies. Forget about all this PSR. I think that's what a lot of owners use to scapegoat and say, "Oh, we're not spending." PSR is irrelevant. Like, Liverpool's making money, so they can't come and say, "Oh, PSR." Like, let's not do that. Man City's making money, so I would buy those two for midfield. I think we definitely need a right back, and obviously we've been linked with Cambiasso. He's at Juventus. From what I've seen, he's similar to Cancelo, but he's more physical. So I think that would be good for the Premier League. If we can't get him, I'm a fan of him. I wouldn't say he's technically the best on the ball, but in terms of attacking wise and getting to the bar line and creating those overloads, Jeremy Frimpong. He was in our academy. I'd bring him back, as a right back. So that's that. And then I think on the wide areas, we're kind of stacked there, because we got Doku, we got Savinho, we got Mamouche that can play there, we got Foden that can play there. So that's cool. And then what I would do then is I'll probably try and get a backup striker that is probably young, that's good, and happy to sit on the bench and learn from a Haaland. Even though Haaland's young, it's mad saying learn from Haaland, but he's a great finisher in it. Because I just do feel like, look now, and we're going to speak about it probably when we're going through who we expect man to start from City. Haaland had that little injury against Newcastle, couldn't play against Real. We don't know if he's going to be able to play against Liverpool. So I think having a striker that is happy and prepared to sit on the bench, but also when he does start, he's able to put up some numbers in this good team. So I think we definitely need 2 midfielders, a right back, and a striker. So it'll be Baleba, Wirtz, Cambiasso, or Frimpong, and then another striker. I don't know who, because it has to be someone that's around in there 21 to 23 or 21 to 22, happy to be like an understudy, come off the bench. So that would be my signings if I was a director of football at City right now.
Do you know what's refreshing about? Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, bro. And I probably would say another defender, because John Stones, we seen he might be out for the season. And I don't know if you saw Pep Guardiola's press conference today. He was basically talking about players that have been, serial players that have been injured, that they're going to have a big sit down with the physios, the doctors, and the players and saying, look, boy, we can't have players that can't, go through this grueling task of playing 3 games a week, or how many games a week they need to play. So Stones, who's been injury prone, might go. Ake, who's injury prone, they might have to get rid of him as well. And we've got a Kanji, but do you just want to rely on a Kanji if Diaz gets injured or whatnot? So also probably another defender. So hence why I said in the summer we still need to bring in like 5 players. The rebuild is crazy. We've seen it with Liverpool. Liverpool have to do their real rebuild as well. And I think we've kind of fast-tracked it, because if we didn't go through this period, we wouldn't have bought those 4 players in January. We would have waited till the summer. But because of how bad we've been, we said, you know what, F that. Bring in the 4 players now so they can adapt, acclimatize to the Premier League, your training and whatever. And they have that 6-month period playing real-life games that matter and training and adapting. And in the summer, you bring in another 5, and then they're going to have to take time to adapt in it. Because that in football, you can't bring in 10 new players in the summer because they're not going to gel. So I think that's where our issue's been. But yeah, like I said, it'll definitely be about 5 players, bro.
Do you know what's refreshing about everything you said? Because the perception that we get as outsiders in terms of like not being Man City fans is that you guys can go out and just buy whoever you want. That's always a perception, right? Like you've made a lot of points, and I feel like I can resonate with it, because that's how we feel as Liverpool fans. So, for example, You mentioned that right now you've got players that are aging, and you haven't really replaced them over the
Mm,
years. That's something we complain about with our owners because
yeah,
we've got the likes of Van Dijk and all these players that are above 30 now,
yeah,
but you should be signing the sort of the understudy so they
yeah,
can work with them, and then once they are ready, then they already slotted in,
exactly,
right?
bro.
But we haven't done that over the years, so that's the same with Man City as well. And
Mm,
there's other things that you mentioned in terms of the way the team is set up. It's like, you know, Man City might be blessed with all these finances, but it's one of those things where your club could get it wrong as well. Because
yeah,
unfortunately for you guys this season, maybe you are over relying on the likes of Rodri and all these other big players and thinking they're sort of indestructible. But when one
fact,
player goes down, you're like thinking, oh shoot, do you know what? We need to reevaluate and look at our squad.
100%.
And now you've signed young players in January, and then now you're not just speaking as a fan, you're analyzing the squad as well. So this is what potentially might happen in the summer as well. A lot of positions need to be addressed.
Oh, yeah,
So
definitely.
unfortunately, it's one of those things where for Liverpool fans, whenever we've made signings, we always feel like it's reactionary or
Mm,
it's opportunistic signings where something comes available in the market and that's when we sign them.
yeah,
We never sign players the way it should be done, the way you mentioned, where you're
yeah,
future proofing like we've done it with Mamadashvili in terms of the goalkeeper, which
yeah,
surprised us more because we don't really move like that.
yeah,
But generally speaking, it's like it has to be a reaction. If someone gets injured or someone becomes on a decline or someone goes on a free because we haven't given them a new contract, that's when we
contract, yeah,
react. So I just wanted to let Liverpool fans know Man City might be having all of these big finances, but they're similar to us as well. Like the way how
100%.
football operates, it's not like they've got more finances, so they don't have these things in them as well. Every club will make mistakes, or every club, you might feel like your club is not ambitious enough because
Mm,
you mentioned our teams go for all the titles every season and have been
yeah,
doing it for the last, God knows, 8, 9, 10 years, right? Countless amount of years we've been trying to go for the same titles. But the reason why we haven't got the quad, or you guys were very close, is because we don't have those squads like you can get on your PlayStation where you have two top players per role. Like
exactly.
it
Bro,
doesn't work
exactly.
like that.
You got a team of 22 and you can rotate them, and that's the next
Yeah,
team's first team. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think what you said is so true because, like, before, most teams used to be very proactive. Now they're reactive. And
yeah,
that's why you got to rate like Florentino Perez because he's always proactive. He don't wait. He's like, cool. Mbappe's going to be free in 2 years' time. Let me tap to him to get him on a free. What?
yeah.
Bellingham, 100 million. Oh, what? Vinny, Rodrigo. All right, cool. What? Traumeni. Oh, Camavinga. You see, they're not waiting for a place to go.
Uh,
They bought these guys when they still had Cruz, they had Modric, they had Benzema,
facts,
they had
facts.
those man, and then they bought Courtois. Like they did that, but then what happened is like with the Premier League, yeah, they get caught up in what the media says, what the fans says, and instead of you spending the money that you got, people want to be playing like it's Monopoly, like they're
Yeah,
saving the money in the bank and again interest. Like you have to be proactive, and I think they there was conversation that were had, and it was basically said that Cheeky, who's our director of football, went to Pep and said, "Do you know what? We want to buy some players. What do you think?" And Pep said, "Cool," because they won the league last season. That kind of fooled them, and he goes, "You know what? We can go one more year with this team."
yeah.
And really and truly, that shouldn't have been the case. If I was a director of football, sporting director,
Mm,
when we won that treble, I'm saying, okay, cool. We need to start reeing up and getting the next guys in. So
yeah,
we got Rodri. I'm not buying Calvin Phillips because of a British quota. I'm buying the best player that's going to come into our
very
team
much.
and improve the team and still keep that level when Rodri goes out. And then, okay, cool. De Bruyne, Gundo, all those man, they're in their late 20s, early 30s. Okay, cool. Let me bring in this guy, this guy, this guy. And also, I forgot to tell you, bro, we got one Don from
Mm,
Argentina. I don't know if you know about him, Echeverry.
okay,
He meant to be cold. So he just finished playing that under 20 um tournament in South America and he was cooking in it. So
okay.
he's joining up with the first team in Feb. We're gonna give him a week off, then he's gonna start playing. He might even get
Oh,
some starts just because we're so poor. We ain't got nothing to lose. All we're trying to do is finish in the top four. So he's got some creativity. So again, if he becomes what he's supposed to come, we might not even need to buy another midfielder. We can say maybe scrap Baliba, just bring in Verts, and then we just play with them two attacking eights, and then have Rodri and
Yeah.
Nico battling out for the DM in it. But again, going back to what we said, all the top teams need to start being proactive instead of reactionary. And I think what you said was so sick because not so Man City, but a lot of, like you said, Liverpool do it a lot and Arsenal do it a lot. They always wait for someone to go down. Then it's like, oh, we need to go and buy this striker. We need to buy this
Yeah.
this backup for Saka or this backup for Martinelli. And it's
Yeah.
like, why do you even want to have a team where you're just playing the same 11 every week? Like, have a team where you've got 22 top players, you've got
Yeah.
your starting 11, you've got your 7 on the bench, and then you can take people out of that bench
Yeah.
and put in another 3 starters that if they do start, they come into your team and they're sick. Like, Liverpool's got that up front, but they don't have it anywhere else in their position.
No.
In other positions, like up front, you got Diaz, Gakpo, Salah, Nunes cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you still got the other. You got the likes of UK. You can bring in Curtis Jones that can play on the left or the right. You got
Yeah.
Harvey Elliott. Then your midfield is stacked in terms of who starts. But then when you got people on the
No
bench,
depth.
yeah, no depth. And then
Mm.
in defense is decent, but you're bringing on man like Kwanzaa. You got
Mm.
Gomez is cool, whatever. You got Bradley. I think he's got great potential, but we don't know what's going on with Trent. It'll be good to find out what you think about Trent,
Yeah.
the situation, what's going on there. Your left back, you got Timisak, but again, I think that's just like a stopgap. So, like you
Mm.
said, I think a lot of teams need to start being more proactive and just bringing in the best of the best. Don't care what rival fans say. Don't care what
Yeah.
other owners say. You're in it to win it for your team and your fans. So bring in the best, man.
It's so true. Like from a Liverpool point of view, like I think our fans get frustrated because our owners don't spend enough money. I don't really look at the financial aspect. For me, it's just bringing in the bodies through the door.
Mm,
Where you need to buy these. It doesn't have to be like your ready-made players, or it could be like you mentioned, an Argentinian player, like someone of that ilk or someone of that high potential that can
yeah.
come in. Because what Liverpool have done in the past, which is basically messed us around, is that we've actually scouted these sort of young up and coming South American players, but we've
Mm,
decided not to go for them because we're thinking, oh, if they come to the Premier League, they might not be able to adjust very quickly. So what
yeah.
we'll do is we'll monitor them, and when they go to the Benficas and them kind of clubs,
Yeah.
that's when we'll sign. But then you end up paying like 5 times, 6 times the price.
Yeah.
So
100%.
and the thing is with Liverpool, I think we missed the trick because we have a lot of players in our squad that are fluent Spanish, fluent
Mm,
Portuguese. So when these South American players actually come in, they've already got a second home there because they've got
yeah.
players that are the same culture, maybe even the same country as them. So I don't know. There's areas in our recruitment. I'm thinking, do you know what? We're not really looking at the market like that. Like we
Mm,
don't need to go for certain players because I'll be honest with you, there'll be certain players in world football where we can't compete. Like if
mm,
Real Madrid show any interest or Barcelona,
yeah.
despite Barcelona's financial issues, they'll just snap them up. It is what it is. You've got to face reality, right? That
Yeah.
is
100%.
that is the pull of Real Madrid and Barcelona, and there's maybe other clubs as well. But I feel like from Liverpool's point of view, we've just never really, you know, addressed those positions when it should be addressed. It's like too little, too late. Like Salah, Chiesa is our first player that is actually a backup to Salah.
Yeah.
Salah's never had a backup player ever. It's
Mm.
just been at Liverpool. So
With that quick question, bro, do you think
mm,
that's like similar to that Harry Kane situation where Salah's such a star and
yeah,
Liverpool are afraid to unsettle him by bringing in someone that's going to compete for his position and take
yeah,
goals and assists and minutes off him that they don't do it? Because remember, Tottenham used to do that all the time. Like they would buy a striker knowing that this strike, and they will never buy a striker that's Kane's level. They'll buy a striker that's from Norwich that is not going to take minutes off him. So do you think Liverpool have kind of done that situation, or is it something that Liverpool and Salah have had with an agreement where you can't buy a player that can kind of replace me when I'm there, kind of thing? What do you think about that, bro?
I think you spot on in terms of the Harry Kane sort of comparison there because I do feel like with some players they expect to be there week in, week out.
Week out, yeah.
So for them, it's like rotation isn't even a thing. And really watching football where rotation probably wasn't a thing because the,
Mm,
the game wasn't played in kind of that magnitude where it was heavy rotation. It was kind of like best 11 all the time.
mm,
So I feel like he's got that kind of old school mentality where I want to be playing week in, week out. But I feel like this comes from the manager where
mm,
he needs to show that leadership to make sure that he's communicating with the squad that look, we're all one team here. Like there's
Yeah.
no individuals. Like there will be games where Salah, you might have to just get a bit of a rest, and it's not because you haven't been playing great.
Mm,
I need you to be impactful in February, in March, in April, because these are
exactly.
the fixture list that it's really congested. And right now, we're looking jaded as a team.
That
Do
yeah,
you understand? So
yeah,
if we're looking jaded because we haven't rotated enough, like for example, in the last 2, 3 weeks, Gravenberch's been getting stick from the local fan base because he's been overused. He's been playing every game. So when you're
yeah,
playing every game at that age, you don't really have that time to rest and recover. You're in kind of like pilot mode where you just keep playing. Doesn't matter
yeah,
what level it is, you're just there. You're physically there. So that has to come from the manager where you have to communicate that. But we've seen teams like Real Madrid that have had all these big stars, but they would like switch it up here and there. Like
yeah,
I remember when Michael Owen went there, they had like Raul,
yeah.
Ronaldo, all these mans, and they still rotate, but you didn't really
Mm,
hear a fuss out of them because it's Real Madrid. They're winning trophies. So if you can back up with wins and silverware, they really shouldn't have much to argue
and-
with. So I feel like that's something the Liverpool have missed out on again.
yeah,
They should have had someone as a backup because that backup player could have
mm,
helped us in the long run. Where
yeah,
Salah went to AFCON, which he does every 2, 3 years. So when he goes to AFCON, we always have that kind of period where players are made to play in other positions or to
mm,
kind of occupy that right wing position. But we've lost out in other roles as well. So we've kind of lost a bit of quality in our overall play.
yeah,
So it has to be looked at. So, Liverpool, look, you probably heard me say in my other shows, not the biggest fan of our owners. I don't feel
yeah,
like they're ambitious enough. But the
mm,
sporting director for me, I don't know, bro. For me, I don't know what you think. I think he's a bit useless because he
mm.
hasn't shown nothing for me to suggest that he's actually actively trying to improve the squad.
But yeah,
Arsenal mentioned that, we are going to recruit heavily in the summer,
mm,
but it could just be talk to trying to appease the fans as it
yeah,
stands. But it's transfers. It's going to be interesting to see how both teams do.
yeah.
You mentioned Trent, so let me get your take as a neutral. What do you think about this whole situation with Trent and Virgil and Salah? Like, would this happen at Man City, or do you think this would have been sort of like done and dusted a long time ago, based on the level of players that we're talking about right
No,
now?
no, it is. It's funny though because it's happening at Man City right now with Kevin De Bruyne.
With De Bruyne,
It,
right? Yeah,
like he's got literally 4 months left on his contract, and we don't know if he's signing or what the situation is. I'll talk about whether I want him to stay or not, or how we should do that. And I
yeah,
think you see with Liverpool, yeah, their owners, obviously FSG, John Henry, and that they come from a very financial, analytical background,
business.
right? Yeah, so they think. And
Mm,
when they first came to Liverpool, they so basically they got a baseball team, the Boston Red
yeah,
Sox, as you know. And
yeah,
how the Boston Red Sox won their championships, they used a theory called Moneyball, which
yeah,
basically you find players on a discount at a lesser team and saying if they come to Liverpool and we create expected chance of XYZ, and this guy's got on expected goals of 10 at Brentford. If he comes to Liverpool in this better system, that expected goals would be 15 or 20, for example, and we can get him for 20 million. So the issue with Liverpool is that they try and skimp on, when it comes to buying the big players. We saw it with, Bellingham. Yeah,
yeah.
we don't know if Bellingham could have came, but if you offered the right amount of money, you might have got him. But you
You never
skimped,
know.
yeah, you skimped on it. And I think me, I don't. As I get older, I don't go by because you pay 50 million for this player, he's going to be good. But there's some players that you have to pay that premium for because when they come, they're game changers. So I say that to say this in terms of Salah and Van Dijk, them being analytical guys, they're thinking, cool. Salah, Van Dijk, they're legends at the club. Won the Premier League, won the Champions League, probably on the verge of winning a second title in 35, 36 years. Cool. But they're looking at these guys want X of
Yeah,
250K a week. And they're what, 32? They're what, 32 years old? And they're
yeah.
probably gonna ask for at least 2 years plus one added on years.
I
So
don't know. Yeah.
is it worth paying a guy that's 32 300,000 a week for 3 years? Where are you gonna get the return in value? If he breaks down, if he's not that same guy, that 300,000 a week is not getting you anywhere. So I think that's where they're skeptical on that. With Van Dijk, I could say, look, as a defender, he's still probably got maybe 4 or 5 years because
Mm,
defenders can play for longer. Salah is he's an injury away of being irrelevant in a sense of if he loses that pace or he has a bad leg breaker, is he still valuable? Me personally, if I was there, just because you want to go for a good transition, Salah and Van Dijk, they're 32, but they're not performing like they're old. I'd give them a 1+1 year extension plus a 1 year option. So that's essentially 2 years. And then
Mm.
within that 2 years, you start, uh, building and bringing in replacements. I think that the harder one is Trent, as we all know, because Trent's young and he's won everything. And you with Trent, you can see he's a sick baller. I love him. If I could get him at City to be our right back, I'd get him because
Mhm.
he would fit into Pep's system like
Like
two peas
tea,
in a
yeah.
pod. He could just move into the field, spray the ball. We're cooking. We're not gonna get him because he's a Liverpool guy. And he said
Yeah.
things like, "Oh yeah, our championship, our titles mean more." So he's definitely not coming. But
Yeah.
with Trent, you can tell that 2 years ago he re-signed with Adidas. He got a big deal, and he's like one of their figureheads. Yeah,
Yeah.
and when it comes to Adidas, their biggest brand in terms of football is Real Madrid. So there's a lot of stuff in terms of Trent going to Real Madrid to build that brand, like Brand Beckham, like
Yeah.
Jude Bellingham, and he's cool with Jude. And I think not in a bad way. I always say this: players shouldn't have loyalty to clubs because if Trent was playing poor, or he was injured, or he was old, Liverpool would say you're too old or you're not performing well. We're not giving you a new contract. So if Liverpool have allowed him to get into the last years of his contract and run it down, he's able to play the whatever game he wants to play. He can flirt and talk about going
Yeah.
to Madrid. He can wait to the end of the season and secure the bag with Liverpool and ask for 300,000 a week, 400,000 a week, or I can go to Real Madrid, take 300,000 a week, get a
Mm.
25 million, sorry, signing on bonus, go to Real Madrid and potentially win 3 Champions Leagues in 7 or 8 years, for example. We know Real Madrid love the Champions League. You're playing
Yeah.
Clásicos. So it's a bit different because Trent has won everything and he's still young. How old is Trent? 25, 26, if that?
25, 26, yeah.
There you go. So he's in his prime and he probably wants to play in that white shirt. There's just something about, like we just said earlier, for the Brazilians, the South Americans, when that Barcelona, Real Madrid come calling, we saw it with Coutinho,
Yeah.
you make that move. And
Mm.
if he was gonna sign, he would have signed already. So me personally, I think he's going to Real Madrid. I think that's done and
Mm.
dusted, man. Like, so it's a shame, but I understand where he's coming from. He's won everything he can win at Liverpool. Real Madrid have come calling. Most people see Real Madrid as the pinnacle of your footballing career. He's got an opportunity to do that. And we've seen Liverpool players have had a history of going there. Michael Owen, Steve
Yeah.
McManaman, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Players going there. So I do think he will be going to Real Madrid, man. But what's your thoughts on it in terms of all three of them, the situation, and how Liverpool's handled it, bro?
You know what's crazy? With the Trent one, so I always say, always
Mm,
go with your gut instinct because I've been flip-flopping my opinion on this like
yeah.
weekly, and it's like I have a different answer every month. But initially, I thought he was swayed to go
Mm,
to Real Madrid last year, only
yeah.
on the basis was that when Jurgen Klopp announced that he was leaving,
Mm,
he thought, you know what? This club might not, fulfill his sort of ambitions because he's spoken
fact.
about it in interviews quite a lot into ambition. That you
Yeah.
know, he knows that as a footballer, your career is not very long. So
Long. Yeah.
even though he's been very successful at Liverpool, there's no guarantee to say that Liverpool will continue to be successful due to
100%,
the
bro. Fact.
competition, all that sort of stuff. So I've always felt like once Jurgen Klopp announces sort of like his departure, I thought Trent had his eye on going to Real Madrid, and I think
Mm,
it could have been where he could have gone last summer, but I think he wanted to probably give the club one more year and
mm,
then just say his goodbyes from there onwards. Obviously, Arnold Slot coming in, I thought maybe he might have swayed his decision because he was an unknown coach. Let's be honest, I'd heard of him, but I didn't know how
yeah.
impactful he would be in his first
Fact.
season. No one
100%.
really could have said, right? So
Mm,
he's probably surpassed everyone's expectations, probably his own, if I'm being brutally honest. So
yeah.
right now, yes, we're probably overachieving in terms of where we were sort of heading towards in terms of our new management. So I feel like maybe his decision would have been swayed, but I don't know. With me, I think he just looks like he's destined to go there. It's just
Mm,
some things just doesn't seem right. Like, and I'm not going to suggest it because I know a lot of fans are saying this. I don't
Mm.
quite agree with it, but there have been a lot of games this season where it feels like Trent isn't fully committed. That's the
Okay.
perception that Liverpool fans are getting. So
Yeah.
they're like, he's not going fully in, like he's not doing this. I don't totally agree with that.
Mm.
I think there's some games where I think he's given instructions to play a certain way, and it's either backfired or it just hasn't worked
Yeah.
to his advantage. And he's also picked up a few injuries, which is very unlike Trent. He doesn't really normally pick up that many injuries. So I feel like the whole branding was is a very interesting concept as well because we're actually going to be sponsored by Adidas from next season.
Yeah.
So that could have been used as a way to keep him on board and said
Mm.
like you'll be the face of Adidas and the face of Liverpool as part of our campaigns. So there's a lot of ways to keep him on board. But I think for this so young, and I think at this stage of his career, where look, his best mate's there as well. So
Yeah.
it's a place where he can go there, join his best mate, and then build another legacy there. And I feel like with Trent, he doesn't want to be known as a great footballer. I think he wants to be like the Beckham, like you mentioned.
Mm.
I think he wants to be an icon that was a footballer. I think that's
Yeah.
that's his vision, that's his mind because he's mentioned these sort of comments in the past. So I do think he will go, and I'm not saying I want him to go. I just think that's the reality. That's the feeling I get right now. And honestly, I don't really have anger towards that. Maybe you might say, "Oh, you're too chilled," but for me, that's just my personality. Because we're old enough to know, like,
Mm.
football is not just about football. It's
Of course.
about the human being as well, in terms of
Yeah.
what he wants for his career, what he wants for his family, what he wants for himself individually, right? So it actually becomes a bit bigger than football, where you need to think about your next step. So I wouldn't have any sort of remorse for him to leave. I'm not really
Mm.
that kind of fan. I know other fans will, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I understand why he would go because
Yeah.
it's Real Madrid. Like I don't like them. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure you don't like them now as well. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But you got to face the reality. They've got a different pull that unfortunately we're elite clubs, but we don't have that
Yeah.
pull because they're very historic in terms of what they've achieved over this, especially in the Champions League. So I think he is on his way there. In terms of the other two, it's so interesting. Personally, I think it would make more sense to give Van Dijk and Salah contract extensions for the next 2 years
Yeah.
and try and find their understudies this
Fact.
summer. So get a right winger, get a centre a back as well, and nurture them to play as their future replacements rather than. Because I feel like it would be suicidal to let all three of them go
Mm.
and bring in three players because it doesn't matter who they are, the pressure is going to be immense. That's a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
These players have been
100%.
elite for Liverpool, but also world football. So you can't. Doesn't matter who it is. It can be an established player from Real Madrid or Barcelona. It's still a big pressure to come in and just feel like you're going to just walk through the team like that. So I think Liverpool need to do some work now. They need to make sure they get at least two out of the three. And
Yeah.
I think if it's just the one, I think that's poor. If I'm being
Yeah.
honest, two, I think is acceptable. Three would be I'd be
Yeah.
overjoyed
That's immense.
because
Yeah. Overjoyed.
I wouldn't expect like I want it as a fan, but I would not have expected it just because of what's
Yeah.
happening right now. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But I do think Trent's destined for Real Madrid. Saudi, keep me linked with Mohamed Salah. I've said
Yeah.
this a few times on my shows. He will get that contract when he's 65. That
Yeah.
will always
Yeah.
be on the table. That offer will never be off the table for Mohamed Salah. Like he's more than football to the Arab world. Like he's the most
Yeah.
famous person in that world. So
Mm.
he'll always have that pull power. Whenever he's like, even if he's on the verge of retiring, or we feel like you said, if he's an injury off from like losing his pace, they'd still want him.
Yeah.
It's
Facts.
Mohamed Salah, so it doesn't make a huge difference. So I'm hoping and praying that it's Van Dijk and Salah. Obviously, I want Trent as well. Some fans are, you know what's funny?
Yeah.
Some fans are like not accepted, but they're kind of like, do you know what? If Trent goes, it's fine. They don't have too many issues about it because they feel like Conor Bradley can come in and be that guy. You mentioned Rico Lewis, who
Mm.
I think is very talented, but
Yeah.
I share the same kind of sentiment as you. Neither of these players, in my eyes, are good enough to be first choice for Liverpool and Man
Yeah.
City.
Exactly. Week in, week out. Like you said,
Yes,
playing those between 50 to 55 games a season. You can't
yes,
rely on them. They're guys
no,
that you can rotate. You play against lesser teams at home. You bring them off the bench, to
yeah,
maneuver the game. and whatnot, but not starting. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the thing about fans. A lot of fans have this obsession with players from the academy. I get it, but what you got to realize that doesn't mean because they're from the academy that they're good. Like in the UK, we overhype our players in the academy. They're not that great. And again, they talk about local lad like me. I love Foden, innit? But this season has been an eye opener in terms of Foden can't be the main guy. For me, and a lot of City fans don't like it when you say it's about Foden. Foden essentially is a luxury player. He's a player that plays well when everyone else is playing good, and he's got top guys around him. When you need him to carry the team, he can't carry the team for you. And that's what you want from your stars. So if Foden can't do that, that's why I don't have this affinity that, if we buy all these top players, where's Foden going to play? He'll have to figure out. If he's good enough, he will start. If he's not, he would have to come off the bench and make impacts there, because in football, you can't be thinking about, what about if we have all these stars? Look at Real Madrid, bro. In midfield, they got Valverde, they got Tchouaméni, they got Camavinga, they had Cruz, they had Modric. They didn't care. They found a way. And like what we were just talking about, they brought in Camavinga and Tchouaméni when they still had Cruz and Modric, but they knew that those men had 3 years left. So let's bring in these guys to be their understudy. Then when they go, they're ready to cook. Do you know what I mean? We saw Valverde playing right back against Man City, home and away, bro. And then I forgot they still got Jude Bellingham in the midfield. So like, bro, their team is cooking. They're not like, we need to, help this player, help that player. We adapt, bro. They got Vinny. They still said, fuck it, we're bringing in Mbappe. We don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's why I said, like, most people might not like Real Madrid, but in terms of what they do and what Perez does and how he acts, you have to respect it, because he's like, I want to win every single year. And for me to win every single year, I need to have the best players. Man brought in Alaba. Man brought in Rudiger. All on free transfers, Man brought in Mbappe. Man brought in Rodrigo, Vinicius. Yes, those guys were projects, but he thought, you know what? I missed out on Neymar, a Brazilian talent. I'm not missing out on another Brazilian talent again. Even if they're not good enough, I'm still going to buy them. I forgot they got Endrick. They got Arda Güler.
Yeah.
Like, bro, let's keep it 100 in. I think that's a lot of these Premier teams, that if they want to compete and win the Champions League, you need to start thinking like that and saying, we just need to buy the best players. We can't be skimping on this players and going to buy this guy from the Swedish league. No, you need to buy ready-made players that can, have an impact and make an impact there and then, man. So both teams need to look at themselves and kind of figure out what they need to do moving forward. Similar to us with like Kevin De Bruyne. Me personally, Kevin De Bruyne, I'll keep him if he takes a salary cut and we give him like a 1-year extension, let him have a farewell, but he's not going to be starting games. If he thinks he's going to be starting games, sayonara. We don't need him, because, bro, like with Kevin De Bruyne, he's like tender lamb. The meat just falls off his leg. He's old, like he's like 32, but he's got a body that's broken down of a 37-year-old, and he can't run. And we play the high press, so like if he thinks he's gonna be starting games and that's what he wants, then City's not the team for him. If he's gonna be here to help players and be like the Scholes and the Giggs and the Gerrards and in the later years coaching these younger players to get better, then cool, we could just keep him there for the vibes and whatnot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't keep him and say, he should be starting in midfield, because Kevin De Bruyne, we saw the last of him before the treble winning season. Because that treble winning season, he was injured in and out. And then after that, he hasn't been the same. So the last time we saw the best of Kevin De Bruyne was 2021. That's going 4 years now.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So we can't have blind loyalty in it. So me personally, if he's happy to take a pay cut and be a squad player, cool. If he thinks he's going to be a first teamer, then we might have to see him in MLS or Saudi, bro.
Yeah, I feel like he's destined for Saudi. I feel like with the way he plays now, like I don't think he would accept being like a squad player. It kind of reminds me of when Gerrard left as well, because he wasn't like, it was slightly different dynamics, because we had Brendan Rodgers as our coach or manager, and let's be honest, he wasn't great. So For someone to tell Gerrard that, yeah, you're a squad player, I just don't think he respected it. If he was
Mm,
like an elite manager, then it could have been communicated a different way. But I
yeah.
do feel like Brendan Rodgers was quite outspoken. Like,
Mm,
we did these documentaries and he cussed out Sterling in one of the episodes. So he was always like very erupt in terms of how he spoke. So I don't feel
mm,
like he was the best of communicators, despite what
yeah.
he believes, because he probably thought
Right
he was the
message,
best.
wrong messenger, in it, as they say. Do you know what I
Exactly
mean?
that. So I think with De Bruyne, I don't. If I was to predict, I don't think he'll stick around. I think he'll probably go MLS or Saudi. I don't see him being that type of player to stay for another year and then kind of see what you mentioned in terms of like try and nurture the youngster. I don't feel like that's his kind of
Mm,
way of being a player. I feel like he kind of not in a selfish way, but I feel like he's more focused on himself, where
mm,
it doesn't need to have that loyalty to Man City to do that sort of task, if that makes
yeah.
sense. So that's more you normally see that with like British players that
Mm,
want to help out and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like he's probably gone. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the summer with regards. But it's quite interesting what you said because I don't know if it's ownerships or coaches or fans, but I feel like nowadays there's too much sentiment in football where
mm,
the coach is like too loyal to a specific individual because they're hardworking and they can do a bit this, a bit of that. And like Klopp is definitely accountable. He's done that with quite a few
yeah,
players.
yeah.
And
We
that's
saw
why
it.
you mentioned the midfield because
Yeah,
those guys should have been shifted 2 years ago, but
yeah.
they were still there for quite a long time. So I don't know if it comes from the owners or they're forced to keep those players around because it seems to be a common theme in the Premier League. You mentioned it as a Man City fan, like from a Liverpool point of view, I feel that as well, and I find it frustrating because I want us to win every trophy. I want to
Yeah,
be winning. So for me, I don't really care about this sentiment stuff. Like I want us to get the best talent out there. So I don't really care. And this is from a fan's point of view. A lot of fans are like, "Oh, we can't sign this player because that's going to hamper this guy's development." That I don't really
exactly.
care about that.
Yeah,
I
exactly,
really
bro.
don't. As harsh as that, I don't really care about that. For
Mm,
me, if that guy who's around the sort of the fringes of the team is not good enough to start, I have to get someone better than him, and he can be
100%.
the cover, he can be the understudy, or he can be rotated. There's no shame in being a player that is rotated in a squad that win trophies every year. I
Trophies,
don't
yeah.
feel like that's a bad thing. So a lot of players do it. Carson's been robbing a living over the years.
Bro, the guy never
That's
play games, but he's getting money, he's lifting
yeah,
trophies, he's getting some medals. So I hear and I think, like you said, like I don't know why a lot of fans are scared of bringing in
yeah,
quality to compete with their favorite youngster or their favorite
youngster,
player
yeah,
in general, because you need that. And I think that's where you have that competition, like, still sharp and still. So that's
yeah,
what you got to do. Like, and as we've just both said, if you're really that guy, you will outplay that guy and you will start the games. So
yeah,
if you believe in yourself, you're like, cool, bring on a competition. I'm gonna learn from him and he's gonna learn from me, and we're both gonna get better.
exactly.
And I'll start games. So I don't think you can have that favoritism, like, oh yeah, I don't want to bring in this person because McAllister's gonna get dropped or
Yeah, I
Slobberslide
hate that.
or Nunez or this person. Have the best of the best, and they'll slug it out who's gonna start. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I don't like that kind of viewpoint, and I say
Mm,
a lot of my shows because for me it's like I don't really care about that element to the game because don't get me wrong, I love the fact that we can see young players coming through and like through the academies and all that sort of stuff. Like it's nice. It's a beautiful aspect of the game. But at the same time, we win. It's as
yeah,
simple as that. So for me, it's like you can't hold off the team to be successful by letting someone have the pathway because unfortunately we live in a day where one injury can cost a team's whole campaign. So it
yeah,
could be where if you haven't got adequate cover for that role because you thought your guy was the next big guy and he's just picked up an injury, then unfortunately you've just shot yourself in the foot. So
yeah.
I don't know if it's a Premier League thing or owners in the Premier League, but Real Madrid is a great example because when they signed Camavinga, he wasn't like elite. He was like
Exactly.
he was don't get me wrong, he was balling in
There's
League On,
potential there.
but
That's all. There's potential.
potential. And we all saw the potential because I watched him for France, I watched him under
Yeah.
21 swimming for Rons. I was like, this guy, like, someone needs to get
Everyone knew
him.
he was cooking it. And it was just like, it was a matter of time of when he's gonna start.
Yeah,
And he was gonna beat out those two veterans and be a starter. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. No, it's facts. It's facts. So just got a few comments in and then we'll We can talk about the match preview in a bit more detail. So, Dara says, "Hi fellas, big up yourself, Dara."
Big
He
up
says,
you,
"I
man.
wanted to revisit a topic I brought up previously, Ozzy, and the topic is: Would you rather have Nunes come on or Doak?" At this stage, I'd have myself come on instead of Darwin Nunes, Dara. So that's not a difficult question to answer. But you know my viewpoint on Dara, on Nunes, Dara. I've said it for months now. I've said it for about a year now. If I'm being brutally honest, I just don't think he's good enough. He's been at the club for about 3 years. He's had his chance to make improvements in his game, and the reason why we signed him is to be a finisher, and he can't finish. It's as simple as that. I'm not just going based on the last game where he missed the open goal. This happens countless amount of time. For me, I just don't think he's good enough for Liverpool, and I don't think his skill set is pretty much suited for the Premier League. I think if he
Mm,
goes to like La Liga or Serie A, I feel like the game there might be a bit more suited where he'll have a bit more time to kind of press on the ball because he's an aggressive player, but
yeah,
the game is being played more aggressively here than it is elsewhere in Europe. So for
yeah,
me, I just don't think the dynamics suit, and I don't think, and I don't mean to be rude when I say this, I don't think he has game intelligence. I don't think he has
yeah.
a he doesn't have a football IQ where when
Facts.
you play football, like you already know when you're a
What
good
you're
player.
gonna
I'm
do?
not saying, yeah, like I'm not trying to say I was born or anything, but I could play a little bit. But I would know 2 steps ahead what I'm gonna do.
Gonna do? You
If
already scanned like, okay,
you've
where's
scanned
where,
it,
who's who, what
yeah,
pass I'm gonna do, what run I'm gonna make.
yeah,
And I think, you know what it is? Not even just Liverpool, yeah. I think I feel sorry for Premier League teams because a lot of these foreign leagues know the Premier League got money. If you're one of the top teams and you're going for one of their players, they're just gonna quote you one astronomical price. And the thing about Nunes, which is mad, he was at Benfica for one season, yeah,
yeah,
went to Almira for one season, and
yeah,
then he was decent, but Liverpool had to pay nearly 90 million for him, bro. And you gotta realize that value is only because Liverpool came in. If West Ham came in or Everton, Everton could have got him for
yeah,
like 35 or 45 million.
yeah,
And I think
facts,
because how profitable the Premier League is, a lot of teams get bumped when they buy players abroad. And sometimes you got to think about it. If I'm going to buy Nunes for 90 million, I might as well just go and buy an established player that's going to cost me 95 because
yeah,
we don't know what we're going to get with Nunes. What we're looking at is potential if he continues to grow, if he gets the
yeah,
right coaching, if he gets this. But when you go to a Liverpool, there's not really that bedding in. You might get 6 months, but after that, you need to hit the ground running. If you don't,
yeah,
now people, you're on the clock. They're doing this 007, 0010, 0025. That now you're on the clock. So it's stressful. And I think now a lot of that's why you see teams like Liverpool now
mm,
they cut back and they're like, we're gonna go and buy people that are proven in the Premier League.
yeah,
McAllister 35 million. Like
yeah,
even with Slobosly, I liked him, but when you look how much you paid for him, you're thinking, for what we paid, we should be getting more of an output. I'm not a GA merchant. I'm more of a static player,
no,
innit?
but that's a fair
But
assessment.
but when you look at Slobosly, you're thinking, you paid 80 million. Back in the day,
Yeah,
you buy something for 80 million. That guy is a certified baller. You know what you're getting. And we hear a lot of Liverpool players, fans saying, "Oh, Sobosai is good, but he don't get enough goals. Like he don't contribute."
yeah,
Even Slot said it. So it's like a lot of the big teams are just getting kind of finessed for buying players that are not the value that they are, and then
mm,
they've got that price tag on their shoulders, and they're not living up to that price tag.
yeah. So both that was 60 million, but your
Yeah,
point
60.
is correct because I'm a big fan of his. I've been watching him since his Salzburg days because
Yeah,
from he was going bangers. I'm thinking, who's this
bro,
guy?
was that
Because you don't really
FM
see
manager brought
players.
him on?
Yeah, you don't really see players scoring goals like that. So for me,
Yeah,
that was like my favorite players back in the day that could score like those 30 yarders.
screamers.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I used to love that. So if I'm seeing someone scoring, I'm thinking, do you know what? We're missing that in the game. Like we're probably missing traditional number nines right now. So I'm thinking,
mm,
if you've got that kind of player, he's one to look out for. But I do agree. I feel like with this role, I think it might be like I don't think he's found the balance where I think he's doing what the coach is telling him to do, but he's not
mm,
really doing the other side that comes natural to him. So he's working hard, he's pressing for the team and all that stuff. But I feel like he's doing so much energy doing that. He needs to kind of be a bit more measured and
yeah,
be like, you know what? I'm not going to use that extra yard to chase that guy. I'm going to get in a position where if we can intercept that ball, I
yeah.
can
I'm
create
there.
half a yard and go bang and then try and shoot. He's not doing it in that. He's done. John, he's shown traits of that this season, but I need
Mm,
it to be more consistent. So maybe, obviously, next year we can see that a bit more. But I feel like there's a player that can go that next level, but he's got work to do because the numbers aren't matching. Like people classify him as a 10. I don't think he plays as a 10. I
Yeah,
see him more
I
of
would
an
say he's a
advanced
10.
8. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah. And you got to realize that the way teams plays that there's not really no tens in football anyway.
no
Because
10s.
what happens
Exactly.
is you players at 8 on paper and in possession you're like an 8, but out of
Yeah.
when you have the ball in possession you're a high 8 in the half
Yeah.
spaces. And those players that are playing it, they're not traditional 10s like De Bruyne. He's not a traditional 10. He's not a Ronaldinho. He's not a
No,
Del Piero. Do you know what I mean? So
no.
like that's where people get confused because they play high up. They think they're 10s. They're just advanced 8s, and that's how football
Yeah,
is. Like when
yeah,
people move to a 4-3-3, that's what you ended up having: advanced 8s or box to box midfielders. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Even with the 4-2-3-1, like, people just
Yeah,
assume that the advanced one is the 10, but
not
I
all
don't
the
really
time.
see anyone play as an like the example. Like when I think of 10, I think of Del Piero because that was like the guy that I used to think. Do you know what? Like that
Of
position was
course,
like his
cooking,
trademark role. Yeah.
cooking.
So for me, it's like no one plays like that. That's not the way. Unfortunately, the modern game is not played like that. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah,
not. Even the striker role is kind of like you're not really a striker now. You're more of a forward that attacks the channels. It's like you're
yeah,
roaming around a bit more. So the game's changed. So we don't really see those kind of roles. But obviously, when you're trying to explain the tactics, you label them as the 10, but we all know that they're not really playing
it's
as
playing
a
as a
10. That's
10.
not
Yeah,
really their role.
100%.
On paper, I guess it is, but really it's not. So because if
Mm,
he's a second striker, then he's further up. He's alongside the striker
right,
or
yeah,
just outside the box where the striker's a bit more towards the 6 yard box, but you don't really even get that type of striker anymore.
yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. But no, I definitely agree with your points there. Dar said you could say that about the whole City team this season, though. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Maybe something we were saying earlier on. Um, Dar also said he was better than Hodgson. I think that was my point about Brendan Rodgers. Listen,
Brilliant,
Brendan
yeah.
Rodgers, yeah, that I did not rate him at all, man.
I think
Like these touches that
thing
was a
with
bit,
Rodgers, yeah, he was
yeah,
good, but the hype got to his head from the
100%.
Swansea playing good football, and now he
Yeah,
thought, "Oh, I'm the UK version of Guardiola," and he just tried to do too much. And you've seen from his career after Liverpool where he's gone. He's back at Celtic. Yeah, Celtic is a good, stomping ground for him because you get
but
to
he
play
had to
Champions
go
League.
back there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
was
Like
not for him.
you get to play Champions League and stuff, but your league is dead, bro. Your league is not even better than probably League One in a sense.
Nah,
You know what I mean?
nah,
So I think
true.
Rogers had to come down and said, I had a decent season at uh Leicester for a bit, then they went backwards, but he just hasn't lived up to that expectation, man. So he has to hold
Nah.
that one, man.
Like, he has to. For me, he was just like way above. And the funny thing is, I use the analogy of Ange Postecoglou. I call him the Australian Brendan Rodgers because I feel
Mm.
like
You're right, it's
tactically they've
true.
got the same football kind of vision and stuff like that. I don't think in terms of arrogance, it's quite the same. Well, actually, you might disagree because people do think Ange's a bit arrogant in terms of the way he talks or
Talks, yeah.
the way he kind of communicates. But I feel like with him, this might be a point about modern coaches or like in general. I feel like modern coaches, and I'm not just trying to dish it out on anyone specific, but
Mm,
I feel like they see the game in their own bubble. Like it's
mm.
like it's their way or the highway kind of thing, and it's
Yeah.
like no one's really adaptable. Like Ancelotti is a great example. We speak about Real Madrid a lot today, but we have to use them as the example now because they're doing it. Do you know what I mean?
I'm
They-
gonna I'm gonna have a rebuttal in this because I
yeah,
always say this, yeah, and people like to I see a lot of fans, not yourself, because
yeah,
obviously you respect good football. Good football. A lot of
yeah,
players, a lot of fans, yeah, they're jealous of Pep in terms of how he gets credited for changing the game. And you got to realize a lot of the fans, yeah, they're Man United fans, and they don't want no one to overtake Fergie as being the goat or whatever. So they always try and discredit Pep, saying, "Oh, he needs money, he needs the best players." But what makes me laugh is that the same notion that they use for Pep, they don't use that for Ancelotti because it's all good saying Ancelotti lets his players play, but
yeah,
that style of football only works when you've got ballers, and that's what he's got at Real Madrid.
yeah.
We've seen him go to
But
other places; it hasn't worked. Everton, he struggled. We've seen him. He's gone to Chelsea. He had one good season after it was down. Then he got sacked,
yeah,
but he had good players there. He went to Bayern Munich. He cooked there, and then he got sacked. AC Milan.
yeah,
So the same ethos and energy you have for Pep, you should have that for Ancelotti because it's not like he's managed shit teams. He's managed
yeah,
good teams. And then when he's managed shit teams, he struggled. We've seen it with Napoli. cool. Napoli not expect to win, but he still struggled
Mm.
there. He went to Everton, like he struggled there. So that freedom to play only works when you've got the likes of Vinny, Rodrigo,
Yeah.
Mbappe, Jude Bellingham,
Yeah.
Vinga. So like I think you still need to have some style of play because you need to have a structure of how you want your team to play.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have those quality players, at least you know, okay, cool. This are patterns of play. This are phases. This is where you need to get into in terms of zones and whatnot. You need to have that. But yes, I'm not gonna say that if my favorite style is Pep Guardiola, I still want to have maybe one or two players that have some form of individuality. Do you know what I mean? So they can create a
Yeah.
chance. Not every minute rigid, get to the bar line, they don't see nothing.
Yeah.
Jack Grealish style, touch the ball 50 times, pass back. No, take on a player, nutmeg, shoot from outside the box, add that to it. But I do think I hear what you're saying. There's certain managers that try
Yeah.
and have this ego when they shouldn't. Like Pep, he can have an ego, but Ange, Brendan Rodgers, even we sit with
Yeah.
Murski now, you shouldn't have that ego because you ain't won
Yeah.
nothing. Yes, you've got philosophy, but your
Yeah.
philosophy hasn't won nothing yet.
I wasn't even thinking of Pep, if I'm being brutally honest with you. I was thinking of the other names you mentioned, like your
Yeah,
Anges and your might even have to put Amram into it as well in terms of the
yeah,
current
yeah,
mix
exactly.
because
Facts.
like with those ones because with Pep like and look I'm going to speak as a neutral. I'm going to speak as a Liverpool fan. So a
Mm,
lot of fans will say, "Oh, Pep has killed the game. The way the game is being played." Like I disagree with that
yeah,
because in terms of his coaching, yes, he's had elite talents and when he's been at Barcelona, Bayern, but the thing is, his ideology is not common. It's not like other managers in football.
yeah.
Does that make sense? So there's been teams where he hasn't played the same way for every club as well. If you
100
look at his
facts.
if you look at his history, he hasn't played the same way. Like he's looked at the squad, he's looked at the best players, and he's built it around them. So the
Yeah,
Messi's, and then the Lewandowski's, and then now you've got your De Bruyne's and all those type, and obviously Haaland now as well. So that's a coach right there. That's a coach that has assessed the squad and thought, let me think of the best formula because Pep doesn't play one formation, and that's why whenever I do match previews, I always ask you what's the formation because it might be
yeah,
completely
yeah. I know.
different. Do you know what I mean? So I don't
Yeah,
know. I might say it's a 4-2, but now it's 4-2. It might mean something else.
yeah.
So like you have to respect him, and I like when someone wins so many trophies, it's not by luck. So
Luck.
you
Yeah.
have to give the man respect, whether it's your rival manager or not. Sir Alex Ferguson. Obviously, I hate Manchester United, but
Mm,
you gotta give him his accolades. You gotta give him his flowers. Like what he did was unbelievable for the longevity as well. Like he's transformed different teams over the years, so you got to respect it. So I don't
definitely.
feel like football is dead. I just feel like the game has evolved, the game has changed, and unfortunately, when you get older, you always revert to nostalgia, where you grew up watching certain players,
Yeah.
and if you're not seeing those players, you're thinking, "Oh, the game's shit now," because them players aren't around. But
Mm,
it's in every phase of life, whether it's music, football, whatever. Things
yeah.
change, man. It's just the way it goes. So I feel like as fans, we have to adapt to modern times as well. And I feel like look, this is the modern way of playing football, and it's a winning formula. We've got traits of it in our team. We're not playing clock ball. We're playing slot ball right now, where it's more composed. It's high measure. It's like more measured in terms of what we do. It's not
And
intense end
and
to end.
I think slots ball is a bit of a mix of everything. Possession,
Yeah,
direct, sitting back. There's a mix of everything. Counter
yeah,
attack. Like
yeah,
that's his philosophy. Like he will
yeah,
play based on who he's playing against, innit?
yeah.
We've seen in certain
Which I
games
like.
where, yeah,
I really
we've
like
seen
that.
certain games where essentially you guys are just counter attacking. You sit back.
Yeah,
Was it Arsenal or someone when you guys basically score from a corner? I can't remember who
yeah,
it was, but like you score from a corner. There's certain games you'll play possession football. There's certain times where you're saying, okay, cool. No, F this. Let's go direct because you got the
yeah,
runners. And I think you need to have that. You have a base, you have a
yeah,
foundation, but
yeah.
you can tweak it here and there for different games. Like against City, you guys are probably gonna try and get us on the break. And we'll probably
Yeah,
speak about that soon. On the break, on the counter, direct. Do you know what I mean? So I think you need to have a little bit of a mix. And we see that with City sometimes. Like because everyone's used to us playing that intricate passing out the back, sometimes we will fool you into pressing us, and we got Edison that's got a great distribution of the ball and just go long. We see it. We saw it against Chelsea. We saw it against Newcastle last week, and it works because now we got Marmoush playing with Haaland, as we'll speak
yeah,
about again.
yeah,
You got Haaland that can attract a runner or attract a defender to come in, and then Marmoush can do that crisscross and then run directly, and that's another direct ball. So I think you need to just have your base, your foundation. Then you got to
Yeah,
have your special effects. That's like 20% of your game,
yeah,
15% that you can just throw in and you know offer not another team or manager in terms of I didn't expect Arsenal or I didn't expect Liverpool or United or City to do that. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. You have to be less predictable now. You need
Mm,
to be able to throw that curveball when required,
exactly,
especially
bro.
when you play against your tough opponents where, they probably try to master the formation during the training days that they've had, thinking they're going to play that way. But then when it comes to match days, that, oh, shoot, they're not even playing that way. So you need to try and second guess that opponent and make sure that we're not going to play the way they think we're going to play. We're going to have a different game plan and like go, like, in boxing, they'll have different game plans for different
Exactly,
fighters, right? The
exactly.
same.
Stars make fights, as they say.
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same in football. Different sort of concept, but the idea is pretty much the same thing. So
Mm,
it has to be where you can't be predictable because then everything just becomes a bit robotic. And that's not how sports is. So yeah, I
mm.
totally agree with that one. And Daryl's last comment here is sentimentality in football goes back decades, nothing new. I feel like it's more now. I think it's
No,
more
yeah,
evident now.
exactly.
I feel like it's more in the public now. Maybe growing up, maybe because we were young, we didn't really see it too much. But I just feel like it's more evident now. I just feel like it's a bit too much
Too much,
loyalty
yeah.
with certain players and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we'll move on now. We'll talk about the team form and then I'll present the team news. So Sam, if there's anything that I've missed in terms of Man City news,
Mm,
please just like let me know.
definitely,
And
bro.
then we'll predict the lineups and then we can do our score predictions as well. So in
Definitely.
terms of the team form, Man City have won 3 games in their last 5 games. So they beat Ipswich 6-0, 3-1 to Chelsea, and they beat Newcastle 4-0. And then the two draws, sorry, the draw against Brentford was 2-2. And the defeat that probably surprised everyone was the
Arsenal.
5-1 against Arsenal. Like, what's your thoughts on that one?
Again, with the Arsenal game, it was a thing of again a mistake from a Kanji early on. We
Yeah,
went with 1-0 down, and at that time we didn't have Nico, so we didn't have our holding midfielder. And we're a team that once we kind of go behind early, we kind of sometimes capitulate. And
yeah,
in that game, it wasn't a 5-1 game. But as I said,
no,
because the team is so old, yeah, we've got Kovacic, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Bernardo in midfield. Once it gets to 60 minutes or 70 minutes, we gas out. And now you got a free throw in the midfield. And what was happening is, as in life, when you have confidence, you play well. We didn't have no confidence, and then one goal went in, another goal went in. Foden makes a mistake. They score. Like they went 1-0 up, and then we played well. We came into the game. Haaland scored. Saliba was nowhere. Whatever.
yeah,
Cool. And then we scored, and literally 2 minutes later, Foden makes a mistake. Partey shoots, gets a deflected shot. 2-1. And then now we capitulate, heads down. Players are tired, and then we just got battered. So it was a 5-1 on the score sheet, but it wasn't a 5-1 game. And
no,
we moved. Like Arsenal, every dog has their day. They've got us now. We're gonna get our get back next season. And this is why I don't want Arsenal to win the league because they chirp too much over nothing. They want to have a rivalry with City when there's not a rivalry. You ain't won nothing, man. Like you're not on our radar. We don't look at you. We little bro you. It is what it is. Their highlight of the season is getting points off City. Do you know what I mean? So it
yeah,
is what it is. Like that was a game I didn't expect. I didn't go into that game scared because I'm not really scared of Arsenal. Arteta don't play good football no more. It's more like he plays to survive and not to lose. So I wasn't really
yeah,
bothered. But again, the team that have no confidence, and once we'd gone down, then we made a mistake. The game was just done. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I don't even call Mikel Arteta by his name. I'm calling Mikel Pulis now because that's the
Yeah,
way.
bro, exactly. Sangria Stoke. Like, come on.
That's the way they play ball now. So, like in that regards, not that I had respect for him anyway, but I'm thinking nah, because your ethos of playing football was different.
Different,
But
yeah.
you're trying to be a winner, you're trying to be a Mourinho and whatnot to play a certain way. But if that's not in your locker, then you should like stick to your values,
You
isn't
know
it?
what it is
So
though? Same thing happened
yeah,
to Mourinho, and there's a lot of these managers that their ego and their bubble gets burst.
mhm,
So Mourinho, he started playing this terrorist ball, yeah.
yeah,
This this haram ball is
yeah,
when he lost 5-0 to Pep's Barcelona. After that, he said, you know what? I'm not doing this again. And that's when he started playing like Pepe in midfield and all that rubbish. And then with Arteta, the game where he said after this, I'm just gonna buy big, strong, physical
Yeah.
guys, is when City beat them in the title running at Etihad 4-1. After that game, he said, "Nah, I'm not doing all this again." He went defensive, and then he literally playing centre backs, left back, centre backs, right back. He's playing two defensive. You're starting a football game with 7 defensive players, 6 in midfield, and a goalkeeper. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah, that's mad.
You
That's
got
mad.
4 defenders, 2 midfielders, and a goalkeeper. 7 players, and they're defensive, and you just got 4 attacking guys. And your ethos is now is corners, long throw-ins, set pieces. Allow it. It's long.
Listen, that what's Solskjaer's name? Is it Jova? Something Jova? But yeah,
Yeah, something Jova. Yeah.
he's getting too much
Bro,
limelight right now, man. Like, there's some
he
people
thinks it's
showing
NFL. He thinks the NBA is like he's doing stuff on the
remember
side. How to do the set piece? Like, what's going on?
people feel the other day. They got the same thing there as well. They got a
Yeah,
set piece coach who's just like long haired, like
yeah. I
biting
saw
the
that one. I
guy.
saw that one. I saw that one,
What's the game coming to? But yeah, I
bro.
don't know. I don't know what. But in terms of Arsenal, like in terms of their fan base, like obviously there are some like some fans that I respect to in terms of their opinions and stuff. But a lot of them, listen, they made it seem like challenging you guys for a title was the biggest achievement. Like show us respect. We've been
Bro,
doing it for years, but I don't want that respect because we ain't won those titles.
you want to lift the trophy at the end of the season. You want
Yes,
to see the
I
open
don't.
top parade.
That's not good for me to be challenging. Yeah,
Yeah.
on record you can tell me that, but I'm not seeing that as an achievement. I'm not saying that's how you should respect me. Respect me
Mm,
because I've won stuff. That's
stuff.
when you
Yeah.
should respect me. So, different kind of mentalities there. But we'll probably talk about Arsenal another time. But in terms of Liverpool, in terms of going into this game, we haven't been in some supreme form, I would say, in terms of
Mm,
like what we performed on the pitch. But I guess results wise, it's not been too bad. We've got 3 wins, which was 4-1 against Ipswich, 2-0 against Bournemouth, and 2-1 against Wolves. And we had 2 draws, obviously the 2-2 against Everton, and then a few days ago we had a 2-2 again against Villa.
mm,
So some fans are suggesting that we're bottling the lead, which for me is completely outrageous because we're not playing our best, but
mm.
every team that goes for the title has this sort of phase during their
Yeah.
season. Like I'm not surprised it's happening in February because it's normally the most congested month where
Mm,
pretty much all the cup competitions are active, so
yeah.
the fixture list is piling up. So I think we're in a great position. And some fans are expecting a perfect game every time Liverpool play, but that's not real life. That's not how it works. Like the Everton game, one of the craziest games I've watched in terms of
Yeah.
the referee on the pitch, like absolutely crazy. But the Villa game, like we created a lot of chances. We should have won that game, but unfortunately, we couldn't hit the back of the net, and when it was needed. So my question for you, Sam, is as a
Mm.
team that has won multiple titles, back-to-back titles over the years, do you think Liverpool fans should be concerned about our recent form, or is this quite normal to have games where you are picking up draws and still building a level of momentum towards that title race?
It's a tricky one, bro. Because when I've seen
Mm,
it, obviously, uh, my team's not in the title race, but when the Premier League, even if you're like 10 or 11 points, I never think it's enough because there's
yeah,
always going to be a period where you've got maybe 3 tricky games where if you
yeah,
drop, 4 points, that 11-point lead now is 7 or it's 6. And as
yeah,
Fergie would say, it's squeaky bum time. So in terms of Liverpool, I would say it's been an unexpected dip because you're letting Arsenal back into this because
yeah.
you still got to play City. And I think do you have to play what other big games do you have? Or is it just
We've
City that
got
you got left?
Newcastle next week. Next week we've got Arsenal to play as well.
Yeah.
We've got Everton. I know it's not a big team, but it's a Merseyside derby. We've got them
Derby,
at
bro. Yeah.
Anfield as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we've got quite a
So
few big games coming up.
just in terms of that, me personally, when I saw the fixture list, I did say, okay, cool. These games that you have in the midweek and in between, and that Everton game getting rescheduled, I did see it was a tough game. Um, it looks like Liverpool are bottling it in a sense of you're dropping points and Arsenal are gaining points, but there's still a lot of time to go in the league.
Yeah,
Arsenal still have to play Man United and Chelsea, and if they got to play you as well, Liverpool, I'm not too sure. So that's 3 big games as well. So I think as fans, you just want to have that big safety net where, even if we drop points, it's still a 10-point gap. When it gets down to single digits, people are thinking, oh, damn, if this happens, that happens. I still think Liverpool win the league. I just don't think Arsenal are built to win the league. Saka has been out for a long time, so you can't rush him back. They don't have a striker. Kai Havertz is injured. And I don't think they're battle tested in terms of when they need to win these crunch games, can they win? And the thing with Arsenal, it's not even that they will lose to the big teams. They'll lose to the teams that you expect them to win and beat. So I still think Liverpool will win the league, but what they've just done is made the title race a bit more exciting at this period of time because now we're going to the City game. I'm not saying it's a must win for you guys, but it's a must win in the sense that if we beat you or drop points and then Arsenal go and win, what's the gap then? Is it 4 points?
Yeah.
It goes to 4 points. Now we're in both our hands are near the title, isn't it? So it's like it's a pivotal game, and I don't want to jinx it, but Liverpool ain't won at Etihad since 2015.
I was about to say we don't have a great record at the Etihad, so this is a game where it might not have direct value in terms of Man City challenging for the title, but it
Exactly.
still has an impact in terms of the title race because if we lose, then like you said, we've got 4 points, and 4 points is not a big gap at all.
That's 2 games.
2 games, bro. So it's not a big gap. So you have to feel concerned as a Liverpool fan. Like, I'm not saying we are bottling. I always think positively rather than negatively. For me, it's still a 7 points gap. Arsenal, you have to look at their squad. They have, they're limited numbers in a lot of
100%.
their departments. So they have to go out and win their game. So let's see what they bring to the table. Let's see what they do because they might lose this weekend, and it's a different scenario altogether. So I feel like this game is going to be difficult, but it's interesting because obviously being a top team that you support, when you draw, it feels like a loss. So the
Facts,
draws
100%.
against Everton and Villa, it feels like a loss. Like obviously Nunes missing an open goal, it feels like a loss even further than that. Do you know what I mean? So for us, we're not in a good sort of. I wouldn't say we're not in a good role. I think it comes more from the fans' perspective, where I feel like they're painting that picture that it's doom and gloom. I don't quite see it like that, and I don't think the coach and the team see it that way as well. But they do know that things need to change, and we need to try and get 3 points on the board. Whereas Man City, obviously, you guys got knocked out by Real Madrid, so your morale might be down as well. So how is your viewpoint going into this fixture? Do you think it's something that is going to be sort of shrugged off by the players and they're thinking more just about Premier League now, or is it where what, we got to try and grind it now because we just suffered a huge loss against Real Madrid? Like, how do we bounce from that? What do you think the state of mind is right now with Man City team?
I think the state of mind, I think Pep's handled it well in terms of he's outly spoken and been outspoken that the team isn't good enough. We didn't deserve to go far in the Champions League anyway. If we did, it would just been misleading in the sense of, we beat Real Madrid, but if we got to the next round, we could have easily lost again anyway. So I think that's that. Also takes a bit of pressure off the players because they know they're not really playing for anything major. They're just playing for top 4/top 5 because top 5 is going to get you into the Champions League and essentially just taking one game at a time. So this Liverpool game is not a must win because we've lost games. We've lost 13 games this season. This is the most Pep's ever lost in his tenure. So with us, like if we were to lose to Liverpool, it's like we'll brush it off, we'll go again. It's like we're a team that's inconsistent anyway, and nobody's expecting much from us. So if we lose to Liverpool, like our City's not good anyway, we expect Liverpool to beat them. Then it's on to the next week. Beat that team that you're playing that's in front of you. Because at the moment, we are playing like a team that's fighting for top 4. And generally, those are someone that's fighting for top 4 or top 5. Their teams are inconsistent. And that's what we are this season. We're inconsistent. So it's like there's less pressure off the players. And it's like, play your game. If we win, we've got another game the following week, innit? That's how we are. And just quickly going back to the pre-thing was saying, the reason why I think a lot of Liverpool fans might be thinking, oh, Liverpool are bottling it is because what they've seen in the past from the likes of Man City, Liverpool, going on these runs where 20 games unbeaten and they're winning 17 and drawing 3. So now when they see you having a bit of a shaky period and you're drawing back
PTSD,
to back
isn't it?
games, yeah, now they're a bit worried. But because we've both set high precedents in terms of
Yeah,
winning leagues and standards, that's what the fans want all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I think
yeah,
even
agreed.
City fans, we're like, we want to win a league, but we're saying, do you know what? Let's be realistic. We've done something that no one's done before. We won 4 leagues in a row. You
Yeah,
can't expect us to win 5, because if we did, we wouldn't get credit. Just say the Premier League's a farmers' league. Now
yeah,
that
yeah,
now that
exactly.
we're struggling, oh, you want to get a City, so it's a lose-lose situation. So I think this
Yeah,
year is just a rebuild, and just enjoying being standing in and
an
watching from
observer.
the outside, looking, yeah, an observer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what's funny? Like for me, if this was Man City chasing us right now,
Mm.
then for me that PTSD is justified.
Yeah,
If I'm
yeah,
being
of
honest with
course.
you,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we've had the wars, we've had the battles over the
yeah,
years. But and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I don't feel that with Arsenal because I
I
don't
agree
feel
with you,
like
bro.
they're above us. So for me, that's why I don't really feel that kind of stress where I think, oh, Arsenal they're behind our next. I don't really feel it because
Yeah,
I don't think they've shown levels for me to suggest that they can win the title. Maybe mathematically they can, but I feel like in large phases of the game, I feel like we've been the better team. So you're
team.
hoping, face value, we do end up winning the title. And I think we will. I think we will win the title. I just think it's going to be a bit of a rocky sort of journey towards that triumph because
Yeah.
we're going to have quite a few tough games. We've got a cup final coming up in a few weeks' time as well. So I think that if we can win that, that will definitely lift the mood even further for the team. So
Mm.
it'll be interesting to see what comes up. But like you mentioned earlier on, the record that we have at the Etihad is not good. We haven't won there for a very long time. Now, in terms of team news, if there's anything missing, please let me know
Go
regarding
for it.
Man City. So, from what I know, John Stones picked up an injury
Hmm.
against Real Madrid, so I think he'll require surgery. So he's certainly out
Out for
for
the
the
season.
remainder of the season. Yeah, out for the season. Haaland was on the bench,
Hmm.
and Pep suggests that he can't guarantee that he'll start. I personally think he will start. Do you think Haaland starts this one or not?
Bro, I'm a bit worried. I don't know if he's gonna start, because
Okay.
before he got to City, we knew Haaland had these little niggling injuries where he's out for 4 weeks, six
Mm,
weeks when he was at Dortmund. And I think, like I said, we're not playing for much. So do we risk it? Because it's like Haaland could play and we lose, and then that injury gets worse, and we don't play Haaland and we still lose. It doesn't make a difference. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a tricky one, because if it wasn't somebody that had been injury prone in the past, I might say, he's gonna
yeah,
play. But these are type of niggles and knocks he used to get, and he was out
of
for a
course.
period of time. So I just don't know, if you don't play on Wednesday, what those 3 or 4 days that you have, is it gonna be enough for you to come and play on a Sunday? So I'm
True.
not too sure, bro, man. I'm
Okay.
hit and miss with that one. Hit and miss, bro.
Yeah, we'll do the lineup shortly, and then we can kind of build the team from there, and then you
Mm,
can let me know who you think starts. So in terms of Man City, Akanji, Oscar Bob, and of course Rodri are out with
mhm.
injuries. Now, in terms of Liverpool, Gakpo remains a doubt for this fixture, so he'll very unlikely be featured in this one. Joe Gomez and Tyler Morton are not available due to their injuries. Unfortunately, Conor Bradley picked up an injury against Villa a few days ago, so we're not sure the sort of magnitude of that injury, but it's definitely not a player that will be playing this game, and we're not even too sure how long he'll be out for. So that'll be something that will be confirmed, I think, by the coach in the next few days. So that's the team news that I have currently. So what we'll do now is we'll present a graphic, and then we can add our players to the lineups. So
Okay.
we'll start with the home team, and of course that is Man City. So let me present the graphic, and then we can take it from there. So here we go. So that is the graphic there. So first question, formation. Is it going to be 4-2-3-1, or are you guys going to switch it up for this one?
So obviously, look, we both know ball in it, and I always say formations are for it's for the layman's term. So people that
Yeah,
don't understand football know what you're gonna play, but we
yeah,
know in possession, when we have the ball, we build up
it's
in the
different.
3-2-5. Yeah.
Yeah,
So um, if we want to do it like that, we can say, cool. We can build up in a 3-2-5 in terms of how we think the team's gonna look. I think that might be better.
okay. 3-2-5, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's do that. So 3-2-5, let's see. 3-2-4-1. Would that be the closest one?
Yeah, that exactly that one. Yeah,
Yeah, let's do that one. So that would be the formation. So in goal, Edison's available, isn't he? So he should be
yeah,
starting for this
definitely
one.
Edison will be starting. I think what frustrates me with Edison is got this. He's got bad decision making, and I like Allison as well, and I've always said Allison was better because overall, Allison can do majority of the stuff that Edison can do and can do it better. So he's not a better distributor than Edison, but he's Allison's a better shot stopper, commands the area, better decision making, and we saw it in terms of the two games against um, Real Madrid in the Champions League. The last goal and the second goal against Real Madrid in the first leg, he parried it straight out to Brahim Diaz. I don't know why. He could just parried it out for a corner. And then
Yeah,
the third goal, he rushed off his line too quick. There was no need for him to rush off the line. And he
yeah,
gave Vinny the opportunity to just hit the ball and then pass it to Bellingham. And then in the first leg the second leg against Real Madrid, again, he came off his line too quick because they gave a long ball from the defender, Asensio, long ball to Mbappe, and he comes off his line so quick, and he makes Mbappe's mind up for him. All I got to do is lob you. If he stays on
yeah.
his line, Mbappe's gonna say, "Let me take a couple more touches," and Diaz could have probably recovered. So I just don't like his decision making, but he's got great distribution, and I don't think Pep's gonna make that change in play or take. So I do think Edison will start.
Okay. Who do you think starts on the right side of the
On the
defense?
right side, I think how we're gonna do it is probably gonna be Husanov. I think he will start as the right centre back.
Right centre back. Because he did play that kind of role against Real Madrid, didn't he? He played on
Yeah,
that side, right?
so in against Real Madrid, it was like we played with a back four, so he played as a right
Right
back,
side.
and I don't think he's
Mm,
comfortable as a right back, but as a right centre back,
mm.
um, I think he plays.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Centre back, gotta go with Diaz. Obviously, he's been injured a bit this season, and I wasn't happy with his performance against Real Madrid. He's our captain, but he made some sloppy errors. And if you're making errors as a captain, it doesn't give confidence to the rest of your back four. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not really too sure about that. Left back, we don't have any other left back or left-sided centre back that we generally play in that position. So we know it's gonna be Vardio.
Guardiola, yeah. There we go. Now moving on to midfield, who fits in those two double pivot roles there?
It's Do you know what it's gonna be? I think, me personally, I'd
Hmm.
play Rico Lewis because if you play Rico Lewis in
Yes.
defense, yeah, it would be a rest back four. But before you put
Yeah.
Rico Lewis in, I don't think Rico Lewis is gonna start there. I
Oh,
think it's gonna be, I think it will be Bernardo Silva.
really?
I think
Okay,
it's gonna be
that's interesting. Bernardo Silva. Like, if I can learn to spell today,
Bernardo.
Bernardo Silva. There you go. Okay, that's interesting.
And
I
then
thought Rico Lewis would have made the more perfect sense because it gives you that sort of that transition to play a back four
yeah,
where he slots in, and then if you need him to be a bit more adventurous on the ball, you can just slot in as an inverted fullback and form a sort of a double pivot with the DM. So it could be
yeah,
like your Nico Gonzalez or Gundogan or whoever you decide to put
that's what
there.
I
So
would have done. But then
mm,
then it messes up the whole situation because we've got two left-footed centre backs, and Pep's not going to do that. He's not going to play Vardio and Ake,
okay, fine.
and then put Diaz as the right centre back. So I think in the double pivot essentially is going to be Nico Gonzalez there,
Nico Gonzalez, there you go. So
so
that's
I think
him right
he
there.
fits there, and then I'll make it easy for you on
Mhm.
the right. I think we'll start Savio there on the right.
What we made of his impact, I think he's a baller, man.
I think he's a baller, and what frustrated me is that there's a lot of GA merchants in it, so they were just like, "Oh, he's not getting GA, he's not good." But with football, you can't just go based on stats. You need to watch the game. And what he was doing, he was cooking, and he was putting things on the plate, but Haaland wasn't taking the chances. He wasn't scoring. So if I'm laying off a nice pass to you, you don't score. I can't get the assist. But what happened in the last couple of weeks, he's been consistent with the assists, the goals. He scored a couple goals, and then obviously
Yeah.
just his overall play. So I think he's a baller. Once he improves his finishing, he's essentially a regen of Mahrez, but with pace.
Bro, I've been saying that all season.
You know what I mean?
Literally
So
all season. For me, like even when he runs with the ball, I feel like it's Mahrez. And they've got the same shoot number as well. So it feels like even
exactly,
more so that he's Mahrez. So he's a baller, man.
exactly.
Baller. I don't care about that GA stuff because you're right. Some fans do look at stats too much. I look at it as one-sided. For me, I'm more eye test because I watch the game. That's where
Fact
I get my sort of knowledge and my understanding of the game. I look stats to kind of back certain points, but it's not the end all
in the
or end
wheel,
all, if
yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. So for me, it's not really about that. So nah, for me, this guy's a ball. When I saw him play in the beginning of the season, I thought, nah, they've signed a baller there. Like I see why they've got him. So he
yeah.
starts on the right.
I
Who
say on
starts on
the
the
left,
left?
I'm probably
Mm,
gonna contradict myself in terms of the lineup, but
uh-huh.
I'm gonna put Marmoush on the left.
Okay. And then who's the two advanced midfielders
So I'll put one Foden.
on the left side?
I'll put him on the right.
On the right, yeah. Okay. Foden, yeah.
We'll just go straight up front. I put Haaland, even though I don't think I say it's 50-50, but I'm just going for our strongest team that we would put out.
Yeah.
And
He
this
could
is it.
just an hour and get taken off, isn't it? So it could be something like that. Where he
Yeah.
doesn't play the full 90.
And and with this, it's a tricky one because I wouldn't want to play Gundo
Okay.
because I don't think you can play Gundo and Bernardo in that midfield.
Okay.
So we might have to switch it up a bit. We might have to put Marmoush in the 10 for now. So put Marmoush in the
Okay.
10,
Yeah.
and then Doku will play on the left.
Ah, okay, fine. That's interesting. Is that based on expecting Trent to start? So you've got someone up against you because Trent has always struggled with Doku in terms of his directness and his
Mm,
speed. So is that you're thinking in terms of starting Doku for this one?
I think that makes sense, but and I'm looking at it as a manager and how Pep plays, and
Mm,
what this then does is I'll go answer the question. The reason I said Doku just because gives us more of a direct threat, but then also in that middle against Liverpool, I don't think you can play Bernardo and Gundo because you're basically playing with one midfielder if you play both of them
yeah,
because
because
they're
they're
both
both pace as well.
they're both slow and you guys are going to be direct. But
Yeah,
again, me as I'm a tactical in it. I look at tactics and the way we
yeah,
play is that we push Marmoush to come in, so Varjo becomes the left winger essentially, and then you have
okay,
Marmoush in the middle, and he's making those runs. So if we do play Doku, then it negates Varjo from making those overlapping runs because we've already got a
okay,
direct winger there. But I'm going to
yeah,
leave the team as this for now, and I think
okay,
it gives us that threat that we need because we're not that great at the moment, we need to outscore teams. And I think this team here, if we're playing Savinho, Foden, Marmoush, Doku, and Haaland, that gives us
mhm,
an opportunity to have output. And then we've still got the defensive solidarity in terms of Husinov, Diaz, Varjo, and Nico. And just asking Bernardo just to sit them, pass the ball, and distribute to players that are more physical and have more stamina and fitness than him is an easy job. So I would say this is the team I would go for. Not necessarily the team that may start, but it's the team that I would go for.
yeah.
If we was to make some changes, it'll just probably be Marmoush on the left and then Gundogan where Marmoush is. But I'm just not happy playing Bernardo and Gundogan in the same team right about now.
No, that's fair enough. I think for me, in terms of this lineup, the interesting player for me is Marmoush. And the reason I
Mm,
say Marmoush is because in terms of that role, it's not an orthodox role for him, but I
mm,
can see him sort of like coming a bit
that's
more
it.
here
Exactly.
and being the player around this side of the box.
To
And
link
you've
up.
got Doku being the sort of like the out and out winger from back in the day.
Exactly,
and then
bro.
he's been providing 2 assists for these 2 guys, and then you've got Foden roaming around here, sort of thing. And
Exactly.
Bernardo Silva, not defensively great, but he can kind of dictate play, so that's why
Play,
he'll be
yeah.
using them more of a double pivot. So if he needs to roam around here, then you've got Nico being the Hoover, like
Exactly.
doing
Sweep.
things
Exactly, bro.
when needs to be done. So that so for me, Marmoush is the key in this formation. I feel like if things don't work with him here, it can kind of fall apart because then I feel like you then it ends up being where it's not his role, but Foden ends up going a bit deeper. And
Yeah.
then it's like he needs to be a bit more defensive minded. And then you've got Doku Savina being more direct, but then Mamouche not being involved. So
Mm,
he needs to be on the ball in order for this sort of formation to it. But I'm not gonna lie, it's a very, very interesting outlook in terms of how the team's in terms of what I had written down. So
mm.
I actually forgot about Bernardo Silva, but I didn't even have him in my team. So I kind of
Yeah.
went for Gundogan instead of Bernardo.
Yeah.
So I had a sort of like a 4-2-3-1 setup, but obviously it's not going to be static the way we discussed it. For me,
Yeah.
it was Rico Lewis on the right,
Mm-hmm.
Diaz, Ake, and Gavardia. Because I thought Ake normally does well against Liverpool, especially when he has to cover and try and mark Salah. Because I feel like they've always had good battles. So I
Yeah.
can see Gavardia being a bit more adventurous in this game, going a bit more further up. And then you've
Yeah.
got Ake being left side, the centre back. Then you've got Diaz, and you've got Rico Lewis. But they
That,
can
that,
also
that-
switch
that's a good
up.
shout, though. I
Yeah,
do see Pep doing that, but I just think you see with Rico, yeah, I love
yeah.
Rico, but defensively, he's a liability. He can't
Mm,
defend, and it's like
yeah,
you see, there's defenders that hate defending, running backwards. That's your job.
yeah,
You shouldn't hate that. And similar
yeah,
to Trent, Trent hates running
yeah.
back
Running back.
defending,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's where with how Liverpool play with your wide forwards, I don't think you can trust Rico there. He doesn't have the pace. He's not physical, and I just thought
yeah,
having Hussinov there, he's got the pace, he's physical,
yeah.
and
Makes sense.
if he wasn't gonna play against Liverpool, I don't think Pep would have started him against Real Madrid because that was a test. You're playing
Yeah,
against Vinny, Mbappe, Rodrigo. They're all shifts. I think that was maybe setting him up to say, look, be prepared to play against Liverpool. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. No, that's fair enough. I think it's gonna be very interesting to see how Pep was because he can literally just switch around and go past both of us and have a
Yeah,
completely different
100%.
outlook altogether. So it's going to be very interesting sort of tactics in terms of how Pep sets his team up. I think for me, I would have had Gundogan in this one with Nico Gonzalez and then Savio Foden,
Yeah,
Mamouche on the left, and then Holland on top. But we'll see. I feel like there's definitely different rooms that could kind of be altered based on what Liverpool present because it might be a thing where he has a lineup set up, but then he might see Liverpool have made a slight tweak, and then he has to switch it up during the game, which happens quite a
yeah,
lot
100%.
on occasion as well. So I think it's going to be a great battle. I think it is going to be a battle of two tacticians as well in this
Mm.
fixture. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of what teams we see this weekend. Obviously, if it's this lineup, then obviously I'm going to give you a shout out when I do the watch along as well. So
You
yes,
know what it is, bro? I think with this is me. I probably went greedy and I thought more. I went with the lineup more of my heart than my head because
yeah,
when you think about it, I think with Pep he's loyal in it. So I do think Bernardo Silva would start. So
yeah,
it might be a thing where Bernardo Silva starts where Marmouche is and Marmouche is on the left. Then you got Gundo with the
yeah.
DM with Nico, and then you've got like
That
you
could
said,
work as well.
Rico
Yeah,
Lewis as well. So there's lots of alternatives that can happen in a you
yeah,
know alternative reality and world. So we'll
yeah.
see what happens on Sunday, man.
Yeah, different variables. So it can be where any of these players can switch it up and switch formations if required. So what we'll do now is we'll present the Liverpool lineup and I'll try and give you my breakdown. So obviously Ali in goal, so there's no debate in terms of some fans might debate it because some fans think Keller's better than Alisson, which I
No
think
way,
is
they're
ridiculous.
crazy, man.
So not on this channel, I've never said that ever. So yeah, so that's some fans thinking, that's their viewpoint, which is fair enough. So Trent will start in this game. He was literally brought off the other day, even though I thought he scored the goal and then he was brought off a few minutes later. And I thought that
Mm,
was for me, that was the wrong call. I would have played him for another 5, 10 minutes because I feel like he actually just changed the gear there. Like he looked like he was more up for it, and I felt like he could have definitely helped in terms of the game or tried to help get the third goal. So I think he was substituted based on having one eye on this fixture. So
yeah,
he starts that right. back. Now, left back,
Mm.
I would go for Simicast. I would be a bit more sort of forward thinking because I think he has sort of better distribution than Robertson, in my opinion.
You think so? Yeah.
I think this season, not
Okay.
overall, but I think this season because Robertson, and look, unfortunately, I'm not here just to diss out people, but I mean this season the years have come up to him
Of
where
course, we've all seen it. We've seen him get cooked. He's played
yeah,
poor. He's been sent off a few times as well. So,
yeah. So
yeah,
it's been one of those things where I don't feel like he has that sort of same dynamics in the way he plays, and I feel like on the ball, he's not as adventurous anymore. Like he's a bit more reserved in terms of passing. His passing is a bit less accurate than it used to be as well. So I don't think he makes forward runs the way he used to. But that can also come to different dynamics. And I've said it quite a few times as well. Like the partnership between Robertson and Diaz for me it hasn't worked since Diaz has been joined the club. They
mm,
don't really have the chemistry the way Robertson and Mane used to have as well. So
yeah,
it's something where they don't quite know when to overlap or come inside. It has improved in this season, but I think my concern for Robertson is his reactions, where I can't trust him against Savinho, if I'm being brutally honest with you. That's the way I'm looking at it. I can't trust him because Saka cooked him, and
mm,
it was like early in the season, and it was such a predictable run that Saka made, but the only
yeah.
person that couldn't see it was Robertson.
Robinson, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
that's my reservation. Whereas Simicast, I don't think he's overall the better player, but he's shown good moments this season where I feel like whenever called upon, definitely puts in a good shift. One on one is actually not bad. So I feel like he might be a bit more adapt in this scenario. So I'd go for Simicast. And also Robertson has played 3 games in a row, which is quite intense for a player that,
yeah. With
has
that
looked a
age,
bit
yeah.
overworked as well. So I would go for Simicast, but Armstock could still go for Roberts, but I'm going to go for Simicast in this one. Um, Centre backs, I don't think there's too much debate here. So it's going to be Van Dijk and it's going to be Konate alongside him. And the double pivot, I know he's not been getting a lot of love from some sections of the fan base, but for me, Groundbeck is still the guy. I just feel like he looks tired. That's all it is. So
Probably is, man. Because it's funny.
I
Like,
would be, yeah.
go ahead, bro.
No, I said I would be tempted to rest him in this fixture, but it's Man City, so you can't rest
Yeah,
him in these type of games. So I feel like he'll play, but I can definitely see him being substituted in the second half, where we bring on an Endo to kind of like add a bit of stability in that middle of the park. But I think Groundbeck needs to start in this one. What have we made of Groundbeck so far this season?
I think he's had a good season because I was a big fan of him at Ajax, and then went to Bayern.
Yes.
It didn't work out, and then when Klopp bought him, it looked like that 35 million might have been a waste. But then he's had a breath of fresh air since Slot's come in. I think he's a good player. And it's funny that you're saying, fans have been getting at him because halfway through the season, people looking at him as being like one of Liverpool's best players and probably, most improved player this year
Yeah,
and
he is.
one of the most important midfielders in the Premier League. So it's funny how fans can kind of change their perspective,
Yeah.
quickly. Do you know what I mean? So I think, like you said, he's probably tired because you guys don't have a backup for him as well. Similar to like the Rodney situation. If he gets injured, who do you play there? You can put someone to fill in, but they're not going to do the same job as him. Like I see him with these turns that he does, and it reminds me of when you see, like, Pogba when he used to play deep and he'll just
Yeah.
spin you and
Yeah.
he'll just do a little jink and he's taking out 2 players and he's gliding with the ball. So
Yeah.
I
Great
think,
comparison.
yeah, I think Slot coming in is just giving him some confidence. Another Dutch man knowing him,
Yeah.
can speak the language, can give him some confidence. Do you know what I mean? So giving that little boost in that. So I think he's had a great season, man.
Yeah, to be fair, the fans that I'm referring to is it's a small minority, but
Okay,
when
cool.
you're on social media and you see it, it
Yeah.
annoys me. So I have to say it out loud. But yeah, I think he's naturally just tired. It is what it is, man. Like,
Mm,
he's human. He is gonna have these because we've seen him produce 8 out of 10 performances regularly this season. So when
yeah.
it drops to a 7 and 6, like people are like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But for me, I still feel like he would have adequate quality to have an impression in this game. Alongside will be McAllister as well. So I think
What have you
they will
thought of
perform.
McAllister? Obviously, him coming from Brighton. What have you thought of him this season as a signing? Anyway.
I think the first season when he joined, I thought, yeah. Obviously, always thought he was a good player,
Mm,
but the first season I thought, yeah, like we've got a steal here, 35 million. I was very surprised you guys didn't go for him because he was a very similar ilk to Gundogan, in my opinion, like the
Yeah,
way they play the game. So I was very surprised that you didn't go for him. But I think overall, really like the way he played. I like his attitude. I love the fact that he can play different roles. So he can play in a double pivot, can play the box to box, and can also play as a number 10 if required.
and
So for
yeah,
me, he's a very good player to have. Very sort of intelligent on and off the ball, great distribution, and has a decent shot in the middle. This season, I feel like he's been a bit hot and cold. If I'm
mm,
being brutally honest, last 2 3 games he's really like switched it up. Um, but I think it's been a bit of like again fatigue, a bit of tiredness, and I feel like with him and with McAllister, for example, we had the game against Villa. Like he went through the walls, like he was getting like clamped
yeah,
on a regular. So when you're involved in those kind of tussles, it has an effect on your body. There was one game that we had 2 3 weeks ago where he was rattled, and then we had to
mm,
substitute him because he lost complete composure. So these are elements of his games that he needs to kind of work on. Because I feel like he's a valuable member of our team. So for me, I think he's had a good season. But for me, Gravenberch by far has been one of our best midfielders
best players,
by a
definitely.
long stretch. So no debates in that one. For the we call it advanced eight because we know what we're talking about. But for
Yeah,
the number 10 role, will be Szoboszlai. I don't see it being anyone else. Obviously, a lot of fans are wanting Harvey Elliott to come in, but there's players that we have in our squad. I don't think the coach has full belief in. So when I
mm,
say that, I'm referring to players like Kwanzaa and players like Endo and Harvey
mm.
Elliott. They're all players that can do a job in their positions, but they're not going to
They're not the go-to
exceed.
guy.
Yeah, they're not the go-to, but then when they play, they're not going to exceed expectations. They're just going to do a solid job, and
Mm,
it's kind of those roles where you need them for like 1 or 2 games here and there. But like you mentioned, you don't expect someone to be a starter, playing
yeah,
50 games a season. Like they're not those type of players. So
yeah,
for me, Harvey, that he's more impactful off the bench. I've always
bench,
said that. I feel like he's that player that can just offer that sort of that burst of speed, but then that quick thinking of threading a through ball that a tired Szoboszlai might not think, if that makes sense. So it's
yeah.
just bringing on players at the right time. I feel like is very important. On the right side, no debate there. I don't need to talk about him too much. There, Mohamed Salah, left wing and striker role is always a debatable one on every show.
Yeah.
That was not available. Otherwise, for me, Gakpo would have been a shoe in there. I will go for Diaz on that side. I know he's been playing centrally a bit more this season, but I prefer him on the left. I think centrally he can get caught out quite a bit against certain teams. It works if they're not used to a false nine in that way.
Yeah,
But when he's been asked to play a bit more further up, like if you've got two physical centre backs, they're just going to brush him away with ease. So for me, I got Mamouche, where I feel like Mamouche is better coming from the wing than he
yeah,
comes inside, like that kind of style of play. So I see Diaz more as a left winger rather than playing centrally.
true.
For me, it has to be Jota. It's not going to be Darwin Núñez at all. That is not for me a wise decision. If it is, I think a lot of us are going to lose the plot. Jota for me hasn't been prolific recently, but if I'm trying to be positive, he has improved game by game. So it's
Mm,
only a matter of time that once he hits the back of the net, that's when you'll see him, start scoring the flow of goals that you see whenever he's prolific. So right now, for me, that's the main team that I think will start against Man City. So I think Simicast will have an important role to play where I feel like set pieces is very good at. Um, I expect more sort of distribution on that left side where he attacks the byline a bit more and I see Diaz cutting in. So it
yeah,
end up being more it's kind of like Mamouche where we were speaking about like that's the same area I
exactly.
expect Diaz to be in as well. Salah for me, I expect him because he'll be up against it'll be Kusanov if it's your formation. So I do expect him to be a bit more here, but then I can also see Szoboszlai shifting there and Salah being a bit more central. So
Mm,
then you have basically two inside forwards
yeah.
predominantly. Szoboszlai kind of covering ground there. And then when Trent is coming a bit more forward, you've got Gravenberch covering for him as well. Or it can be with Gravenberch's a bit more here and then Konate drops here and you
Mm,
got Van Dijk there, and then if Tsimikas needs to drop deep, he can. He's not the best at that, if I'm being honest with you. That's why I question his long-term future at the club because I rate him as a fullback, but when you've got a team that switches in transitions,
Yeah.
he never does a great job in that role. So I prefer McAllister to be then it just
Yeah,
kind
then
of doing that.
Mattis, yeah, drops down and he becomes that third centre back. But because
First centre back, yeah,
he's comfortable, getting the ball and
on
driving.
the
So
ball. Yeah, so I know it looks a bit clustered, but I think that's how it's going to be kind of like moved around. It's not going to be sort of free for, or it could be Gravenberch on that side actually, because I think Gravenberch might be a bit more of a solid sort of opponent there, where he has
mm,
played centre back this season, and I feel like he might just be a bit more custom. He not normally likes to play on the left side anyway, so and it could be where McAllister is a bit more of a dictator, and in
hmm
that literally in that middle, and then just sprays balls around. So that's how I see the team kind of like flowing around the pitch. But it's going to be an interesting bout. It really is. I'm
definitely.
very excited about this fixture. As I'm sure everyone else is as well. Now, the big question, Sam, is your score prediction. What
Mm.
score line are you going for?
I think it's gonna be. Look, we'll be happy with it. I think it's gonna be like a 2-2 draw. I think it'll be a 2-2 draw, and
Okay.
at the best we win 2-1. But I think it'll be a 2-2 draw. To be
So
honest, man.
I've got the same sentiment, but obviously reverse order. So
Yeah.
my hat is saying 1-1,
Mm,
which is the calculated one because I don't think we've been in great form. And we've not got a great record there, and
mm.
also Man City probably haven't been great recently. But obviously they lost against Real Madrid. But I feel like there's a reaction ready to happen there. So I
Yeah.
feel like a draw could happen. Um, my heart is saying 2-1. I feel like maybe we can defy the odds and improve that winning ratio at the Etihad by winning the game where we probably aren't expected to win, just
Mm.
because we don't have a great record there. So I'm gonna stick with my head and be a bit more calculated. I'm gonna go for a 1-1, which is not the result I want,
One,
but
yeah.
it's the prediction I'm going based on the opposition because Man City might not be playing to their maximum ability in terms of where they are on in the league and where they are in terms of what they're producing on the pitch. But if you look at the talent there, there's plenty of talent there. So for me, it can't just be swiped away because they're fourth or whatnot. You still
Mm.
got to look at the players. There's still a team that can cause us trouble there. So I'm going for a 1-1, which might sound like I'm a bit on the fence there, but unfortunately that's how I'm seeing it right now. So
And it's so funny because in previous years,
yeah,
Man City, we would want to win. But right about now, I'm happy to take a draw and be like, cool, cool.
yeah,
Get that point, keep it moving. Still keeps us ahead of Chelsea because they've got a tough game. I think they're playing Villa, I believe, and then
yeah,
keeps us ahead of Newcastle. So I would take that draw. And when you're, like you said, when you're playing a big team, form goes out the window. And big teams, you have big players. So you don't have to always play your best to win a game. So that's why I think it's a draw. But I
yeah,
also think we could get a 2-1 when you've got the likes of
yeah,
Marmoush, Haaland, Doku, Savinho, all these players. It's not like we can't score goals. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just about the confidence. And it'll be good to see Nico again in a game where, you know, it's a different type of level to the Champions League because we played the two wrong players alongside him to get the best out of him. You can't
yeah,
play a Gundo and a Silva because they're just going to leave you open. So
yeah,
pairing him with the right players, it'll be good to see how he's able to dictate that midfield and allow us to play. Because on his debut, he had a great debut against Newcastle where he had over 103 passes. I think he made 99 of them or something like that. Um, and he made the most forward passes in the game, which was like 14. And since Rodri's been out, we don't make forward passes because Bernardo's just a guy that we all love him, but when we watch him play, he's like, what does he do? All he's just doing is running around. Like there's nothing there. And
yeah.
Gundogan and all these guys, because they haven't got no confidence, they're not doing forward passes. So it should be entertaining. It's a heavyweight, it's essentially a heavyweight boxing match, for all the chips, even though we're out of the Premier League, but we can affect what happens in that. So should be a good game on Sunday, man. And I think,
So
look, everyone's gonna be
I'm
locked in, man.
thinking we can get draws, so it could be where someone might just pull out a punch out of nowhere, and that could be the
Mm,
knockout punch. So it's literally
exactly.
one of those games where anything can happen. But no, it's going to be an interesting game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Dara for your comments. Appreciate you as always. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Sam, big thank you as always for coming on the show.
No worries,
Please,
bro.
please, please let the people know where to follow you, in terms of your socials and your channel, and let's let everyone know what you got going on.
Yeah, definitely. On YouTube, it's Undiluted Media. On Instagram, it's Undiluted Media underscore. And on Twitter, it's Undiluted Media 1. So yeah, just follow us on the socials, tap in. And yeah, it was good being on there, chopping up with you again, bro. Sunday should be a good game. Hopefully it goes my team's way. But it's just a stalemate, a 2-2 draw. We're happy with
Yeah.
that. We move, man. So yeah, love for having me on the show, bro.
I appreciate it, man. We'll definitely get you on the show a lot more. So got some plans in terms of upcoming shows. So yeah, definitely give you a
Definitely.
shout
Appreciate that,
when
man.
we need. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on. And guys, please make sure you subscribe to his channel. Make sure you follow him on social media as well. He does great content, great football knowledge, as you could probably tell. It's not just about you didn't hear any biased opinions here. It was literally
We
football
tried.
knowledge. We even spoke about Del Puro, so a bit of nostalgic value there as well. So you know what I mean. So always a great conversation whenever Sam's on the channel. So yeah, big up yourself for coming on today. But
Love, bro, man.
that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.